Oh, yeah. It's time for the Sunday show after dark.
Well, I'm in the mood now.
Yeah. Hey, I'm Matt Dillahunty,
I'm
and
ready.
joining me on the Sunday show after dark, Shannon Q. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? Not too bad.
Kind of
Shabby.
high five. How's it go?
High five.
High five like that?
Which way do I go? I go this way.
The other way.
No. God.
Yeah.
Okay. I think I can do
There
it.
you go.
One sec.
Oh, no, it looks like my arm went across. All right. We have
I'm just as awkward giving high fives in real life. Maybe more.
Nope, we missed. No, we missed. Man. You don't want Shannon and me at a ping pong table. We can't hit a thing. How's everybody doing? I was at a reptile expo this weekend, and so I didn't get to listen to the regular Sunday show that aired from 2 o'clock until whenever they got done with it. But we are here for the Sunday show after dark. And as always, theists are going to have priority or anything that's remotely in the neighborhood of theists. As a matter of fact, we're going to start off with a call that may be a bit unusual. Just a reminder for the people that are calling in, we desperately want to have good conversations if at all possible. We understand that there is an audio delay on the phones. And so we're going to end up muting on occasion so that we don't butt heads and talk over. It's not an attempt to just be rude. If we're interrupting, it's an attempt to get clarification and understanding. And we're just as frustrated with the tech delay as you're likely to be. Number two, or in addition to that, if we're asking you questions, they're not trick questions. It's genuinely, we need to have some explanation. And what happens quite often is we all assume that because we're all speaking English, that means we're speaking the same language, we have the same understanding, and that's just not going to be true. You might say, God, and we want to know exactly what you mean by that. And that could be a very bizarre idea to some of you. I know that in the 20 some odd years that I spent as a Bible believing Southern Baptist, it didn't occur to me that what I thought of as God might not make sense to somebody else. Despite knowing, hey, I'm a Baptist, they're Catholic, they're Presbyterian, they're Methodist, that's a Buddhist, I knew all that stuff. But for some reason, we use shortcuts in language and we think we know and understand what the other person's saying when we don't. So bear with us. Try to bear some clarification. And also, this isn't for everybody. I've been doing this for 20 years. Shannon's been doing it for a long time. We're here regularly taking calls. For some of you, it's the first time you've ever tried to have these conversations, and you're going to be facing questions that you may not have heard of, you may not have thought about. We may approach things from a slightly different angle than you might be ready to. Pause and think. Don't just wait for your turn to talk and get back on script or back on a sermon. Genuinely try and think, and everything will go awesome, or at least as close to awesome as we are capable of it.
Awesome adjacent.
Yeah. And for those who are, I lost my notes here. For those who are looking for it, this is the Sunday show after dark. On Monday, Skeptalk, it'll be John Gleason and London Storm. Tuesdays, Chewed Gum will be Eve Was Framed and Alyssa Ljub. Wednesday on the Hang Up, I'll have Daryl Ray as we prepare to start doing a fundraiser for Recovering from Religion next weekend. Thursday's Transatlantic Call-In show will be Josie Caballero and Stephanie Helms. And then on Friday will be the Recovering from Religion pre-show. Saturday will be the Recovering from Religion charity event. And next Sunday, I'll be back on the regular Sunday show at 2 o'clock with Eric from Skeptics and Scoundrels, and Forrest Valkai and Paulogia will be doing the Sunday show after dark. That is the bulk of the schedule. But don't forget about the charity stream coming up. We're gonna have some links and video promos as well. And there has been an issue with YouTube demon itization. I'm trying to make sure that it doesn't get it scrubbed or whatever, but every now and then something comes up and says, hey, you guys are no longer monetized, over and over. And we've been pushing for that. And so what we've been trying to do is push patreon.com. And so we are over 700 paid patrons right now. If we hit the 1,000 mark, then Jimmy and I are going to start doing our bad movie review shows as well. And so the links to all that stuff is down in the description underneath there. Shannon, do you have news or announcements or things to add before we jump in and start taking calls?
No, I have absolutely nothing to contribute to anything whatsoever. I'm just excited to take calls because I see that we've got several in the queue already. I just want to say, if you're a theist, I would call in. There's already several queued up and we want to talk to you. So if you're a theist, get on
Awesome.
there. There's a link in the description, or you can call the phone number.
And bring your A game.
Talk to us. Bring your A game. Exactly.
Sweet. So calling in from Georgia is GJ, who identifies as a trans-theist, pronouns are he, him, would like to explain what God is. That would be great, because I'm incredibly confused about trans-theism in general. It seems to take a misunderstanding of what atheism is in order to claim that you're neither a theist nor an atheist, even though under the definitions that I would use, that's not possible. So GJ, explain to us what God is to you and how you justify a trans-theist label.
Okay, thank you. I love you guys. Glad to be here. The first thing I'd like to say is I very recently came to the label, and I got it from just investigating the show, hearing what you guys had said about Jainism. And what trans-theism is, it says basically for Jainism, Buddhism, it basically says that sure, there's some gods and stuff, but they don't matter. And the world is natural, the universe is natural. There might be some stuff inside the universe that are, I guess in Jainism, there are things in the universe that we could call gods, that are gods, but they don't matter. They're just part of the universe, just cogs. And normally I would say to anybody that says, hey, do you believe in this God? I'll go, tell me about it. No, I don't believe in that one. So 99.99% of the time, I absolutely agree with the atheist point of view. I would say I am an atheist, but that's because I believe there's just a problem with the way people use the word God. Every Christian, every Muslim, not every, I can't say every, but when they speak about God, they speak of something above them. Sorry, I'm a little bit nervous here. And to me, it's made very clear that the gods they're speaking about cannot be above them. And that's because in my town, if I got up to go to the Universalist church or to the synagogue or to the temple, I'd pass 4 or 5 different churches on the way with 4 or 5 different points of view, 4 or 5 different gods. And if I'm the one choosing which God or which church I go to, then I'm the one choosing which religion. I'm the one that's choosing which book I'm going to listen to. I'm the one choosing which, if I'm going to eat pork, if I'm going to ever drink alcohol. All those choices are individuals as they literally get up and go to these different places or they stay home. So to me, when people say, oh, God is out there, God is beyond me, it's like the God is subject to you. Every God that people speak about on the show is something they have lifted up above them. The only strength that God has is in the strength of their arms. And so in that sense, sure, I say no. None of these gods that people are claiming are, oh, is this God created the universe? Well, prove it. That's just a claim. That's just a fabrication. Oh, this is the way the world was created. Yeah, that was a fabrication. That's a story. But
so I have questions.
And the way, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So your basic explanation is, sure, there are gods, but they don't matter. And so my question is, how do you know there are gods, since you're saying there are gods, and what are the qualities of those gods such that they don't matter?
Exactly. And the reason I say trans-theist in this example is because the gods people speak of are what they hold in highest esteem. They hold up, you know.
Hang on. Hang on.
despite the
Why are
illusion
you
of people
defining
thinking
yourself
something so
like it seems as though you're defining yourself by not believing in what other people's do and your reason for not believing what other people
oh,
believe. I'm still not specifically clear on what you believe. Your belief system seems to just be in
okay,
opposition to other belief systems, not an actual coherent, like tangible,
okay.
articulable belief system in and of itself.
It it is. One of my earliest thoughts is that I should have as few unnecessary beliefs as possible. And to go ahead and answer the God question, the divinity question, uh, personally, I there are certain symbols, individuals, representations, things that I relate to that
Mm.
I hold up, I lift up, I say they inspire me, they motivate me, they are symbolic of everything, of certain ideals, they have certain extremely high impacts upon me. And those things I knowingly, willingly hold up above me. I could honestly, if someone's inspired by, this is going to sound terrible, if someone's inspired by Taylor Swift's music and they learn something from it, listening to it makes them a better person, they can hold her up in highest esteem. And in a sense, uh, worship is a terrible word, but basically worship, colloquially worship.
You're describing
And to them,
venerating things.
Yeah,
yes,
and we still
yes,
haven't gotten
yeah,
anywhere near. So the original question that I asked is that you started by saying, sure, there are gods, plural, but they don't matter. I want to know, how do you know that there are gods? What does that mean? Are you just saying there are
yes,
things that people respect and venerate? Because why would we call that a god?
yes, I 100% agree with you on that.
No, no,
I
no, no,
think,
no, stop, GJ. I'm asking a
yes,
question. You can't 100% agree with me when I haven't stated a position. I'm asking a question.
sorry, could you repeat it then?
You started by saying, sure, there are gods, but they don't matter. And I want to know, how do you know that there are gods? What are the characteristics of those gods? Because if all you're saying is there are things that people venerate, like Taylor Swift, why does that justify the god label? What other gods are
Okay,
there?
yes. If we sit down right now and say Venus, Aphrodite, if we say Zeus, we know those are the names of gods. The nature of their existence, we could say are they purely literary or mythological or whatever. Same thing with Yahweh. It's a name out of a book. It's a story. So I think an atheist could probably agree that the history of deities entirely is one of uh, fabrication and one of humans choosing to relate to an idea.
Okay,
So
we're
the
still
entire
nowhere
nature of
near
divinity.
answering the question that I asked. We don't
Mm.
have to discuss what atheists might agree with or anything else. You started by saying, sure, there are gods. How do you know that that statement is true? And what do you mean by gods?
The statement is true because I personally hold certain ideas and ideals that are not transcendent of the human world. They're not supernatural in any way. They are simply venerated, uh, imitated, uh, worshipped, and held up to that highest ideal. And I'm saying that to me is what a god is, and historically has always been. And as far as I can tell, has never been anything different than that.
Or are you just saying God is ideas that people hold in high regard?
Uh, yes, a good simplification.
Well, that's just a complete reclassification of what the word God means, though, wouldn't you think? In any common discourse.
That's not the
Yes,
God of
but the
classical
thing about
theism. That's not the God.
yeah,
That's not the God of classical theism. That's not the God of Christianity. That's not the God of Judaism. It's not the God of any major religion. This is such a minority view. This is like what you're doing is roughly the equivalent of saying, "Hey, everybody's got their religion. For some people, football is their religion." That's that's
Mm.
beyond stupid. When we're dealing with a world where people are thinking there's an actual God, an agent being that is either the creator, the sustainer, that wants them to do things, that wants them to live their life a certain way, that wants them to donate to him. When there are people, when that is the overwhelming majority of what people believe in a God, and it's impacting how they vote and how they treat others, I couldn't give less of a fuck if somebody says, ooh, I've got this idea and I venerate it. That doesn't make it a God in any sense that's worth wasting time on.
Yes. And what I'm saying is, by addressing people who believe in gods as something external to themselves, as something out there, and ignore the true, what I would say is the true relationship is, this is something you are venerating. This is something you are imagining. This is something you have chosen. This is
You're
something
not
you
talking
are
about
literally.
a God, you're talking about something people do. How do you know that the God of the Southern Baptist Christian is only an idea they venerate and not an actual being? How do you do that?
To go about actually proving that something a person seems to show all evidence of imagining is not also true. I can't show that something that doesn't exist, I can't prove it doesn't exist.
Right, but you're the one that's claiming
So,
that's the case. You're the one that's claiming that all of these other religions, all of these majority religions where people actually believe there's an actual agent being, you're asserting that this is just an idea they venerate.
and I believe I can assert that. I can say
You can
that
assert
any
anything you
experience.
want, but how do you demonstrate it?
Okay, just hear this bit out. I know you listen to me. I'm that's a terrible phrase to use. Hear me out, because this is your show. But quite literally, what is the experience of any person with, doesn't matter, a computer, with a friend, with God? It is literally, sensation is merely, it's a perception, it's an experience. An experience gets broken down into just human faculties, human relationship. It's always just a relationship between the individual and whatever they are perceiving. They can be perceiving something that
No.
no.
My relationship with Arden is not merely a relationship with an idea in my head. It's with another real person. There are ideas surrounding that as well. But that's different than if I was having a relationship with an imaginary friend. You don't get to just assert it's imaginary and leave it at that. I'm asking, how do you demonstrate it?
So the question is, how do I demonstrate that the relationship that people have, the feelings they have, do not extend to something that is outside the universe? I cannot
Correct.
prove that.
Then you shouldn't be saying that's the case. You shouldn't be making claims that you can't defend or won't defend.
Okay, then I have a question then. If we talk about just, oh, sorry. Oh, you said okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. When we're talking about human existence, human experience, is always the person, the individual. There's the I. Everybody has, well, assuming there's other people than yourself, ourselves individually. People have an I. They have a point of view, a perspective. Everything that we know, remember, experience, fabricate is, through the lens of the self. What you feel heat, whether you see your friend, whether you're feeling emotional bliss, those are all sensations coming through to the I.
Yes.
The capital I. And I was just trying to say that even the experience of deep meditation and someone thinking they feel oneness with the universe, they are having a sensation. That sensation can't be denied. But then the label we put onto it, true, we could do brain monitoring, brain scanning, but we have that sensation. And once we have the sensation is true. It's the foundation of existence. And
it's true that you're having a sensation. That doesn't mean that the sensation itself leads to truth.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
agree.
So
The sensation is
I think
true.
no, a sensation is
sorry.
not true
What's
or
the question you're trying
false.
to get to?
That's like
Oh, no,
saying that
just
purple is true. No, like listen for a sec. That's like saying purple is true, right?
well,
Purple is a sensation. That's in your paradigm, the way
well,
you're this is really minimalistic, but that's like saying purple is true. When you experience purple, purple is true. But
then
that's
I would say
not
it
an
is.
accurate way to one sec, GJ, one sec. That's not an accurate way to
Sorry.
describe that sensation. Like, it is true that you are having the experience of purple. That doesn't make purple true or false. That's a nonsense statement. You can't say purple is true or false. The only thing that you can say, like, that you're conflating. You're conflating the fact that it is true that you are having experience with that experience being something akin to truth. And the two can't be aligned that way. You understand that?
I would, I understand what you're saying, but what I'm saying is what's true is that which comports with reality, and
Okay.
reality is posed as humans experience reality. Reality is our experience. Is our experience. It's the purple. We can say that car is purple over there because we experience it as purple. Whether the
No.
car exists
Are we saying
over
that just
there,
because no, that's not how we determine what is or isn't true about the external world, right? We just that's not the case, because somebody who's colorblind, for example, wouldn't be able to discern that car is purple, but it is the fact that it is purple, even though that is not their experience, right? Because we can externally corroborate these sensations, these perceptual sensations. We have measurements that we can use that are with
and
tools outside of ourselves to corroborate these sensations. It isn't just our sensations that lead to truth. Our sensations are the tools that we have to discern reality and experience reality, but that is couched within an epistemology that we would be utilizing, right? In order to make sure
okay,
that what we're experiencing isn't some form of delusion, or if there's some sort of impediment that prevents us from having the full perceptual experience, that we're not relying solely upon those perceptions.
yes, I don't say that just because we perceive something individually that means it's true of the external world. I'm not saying that. I was only trying to connect to the idea that we have experiences of things. I say it's purple, and someone says it's different. They could prove it that I am colorblind and my color's off. That I'm having an experience. I label it wrong. And
What's the point we're trying to get to? What's the point
Yeah,
we're
I
trying
don't
to
get
get
it
to,
either.
GJ? Because you've, at this point, I thought you were heading towards the problem of hard solipsism. I don't know what point you're trying to get to.
Yes, what I was going to say is that we have experiences that we
Yes.
can and we label them as we wish. And I'm saying people have experiences, and sometimes they label them as God. And the truth is that they
Yes.
had an experience or the sensation, and then only when we misapply labels, then we start to come into separation from truth, and we start to believe
How do
things
you
as
tell?
opposed to
How do you
knowing
tell
things.
when someone has misapplied the label God?
I can't say that a misapplication has happened, but we
And yet you did.
cannot say that yes. But at the same time, we can't ever say that the label is correct. We can't verify that the label is correct.
How do you know that we can't verify the label is correct? Because essentially you're saying there is no way to verify any God claim, and I don't know that that's true. How do you know it's true?
How do I know it's true that
That
any
we can't
God claim
that there are no God claims that can be verified. How do you know that?
I don't. In absolute
Okay.
sense, I do not. You're correct.
So
Okay.
you're not convinced
All right.
there's a God, which under my definition makes you an atheist, not a trans-theist, because there's no such thing as trans-theist using the definitions that I use, where theism is the acceptance of a claim that a God exists, and atheism is the rejection of a claim that God exists. It's not the acceptance of a claim that there are absolutely no gods. That is a subset of that. And so under my definitions, there's no such thing that makes any sense as trans-theist. But you started off by saying there are gods. Now we've figured out that when you said there are gods, all you meant is people venerate things, which we all already knew, and is on par with saying football is your religion. What use is there for you as a Jane in saying you're a trans-theist and acknowledging that there are gods if all you mean is, hey, people venerate different things, I'm going to venerate these? What does that get you that is different, better, or more useful than saying I'm an atheist?
I think the only, like speaking colloquially, I think the only, I'm not a Jan, but the only thing it gives me, or the only thing it
I'm sorry.
grants.
I must have read that wrong. I thought.
Oh,
I
sorry,
thought
it's
you were a
okay.
Jane.
The only thing it grants is the, I would say, emotional intensity. I wouldn't say spirituality, but the recognition of the subtle. So, yeah, I get what you're saying, Matt. I'm glad I talked to
Recognition
you.
of the
I'm
subtle.
glad I had this discussion.
Don't get me wrong. I'm glad you clarified that you're not a Jane, but I'm never, until somebody comes up with some sort of way to make it make sense. I think the trans-theist label is exceptionally stupid. Not that the people who use it are stupid. I think the label is a horrible misunderstanding of both the burden of proof and the theistic proposition. But for people who would say I'm a trans-theist, whether they're a Jain or whatever else, and I know it's been used for Jains and for some versions of Buddhists and things like that, and generally it's the same sort of smug superiority from the trans-theists that you get from some of the capital A agnostics, like we're above the fray or whatever else. And so when somebody says, hey, I'm a trans-theist, my question is, are you convinced that a God exists? Because if you are, then you're just a theist and not a trans-theist. And if you're not, then you're an atheist, and I don't know what the benefit is. And so I'm just trying to figure out, when you say, you called in to say, I'd like to explain what God is to me. And it seems that what God is to you is whatever idea people venerate and hold as their, I don't know, their gree-gree, their MacGuffin, their whatever. And the other issue is, does it matter whether the thing they venerate is actually true? And if they venerate something that is real and true and existing, why would we call that a God? Like if I venerate Taylor Swift, we'll just stick with that because she's awesome. But if I held her on a pedestal and said she's way better than everybody else, and I want to be like her, and I want to emulate her, and all these other things, if all of that is true and correct, I still wouldn't refer to her as a God, because there's billions of people currently living and billions of people who have lived and died for whom the God label is about something that is transcends space and time and has incredible power and is the foundation of morality or is the sustainer of the universe. None of those things are Taylor Swift, no matter how much I think she's awesome. So why would we ever call her a God, or call that roughly even in the same ballpark of a God? Now, I know people, I've seen the graffiti, Clapton is God. Clapton's not God. He's a fucking racist. But I've seen the graffiti saying Clapton is God, and I know why people venerate him, because he is a quote God on the guitar for sure, but not a God in the sense that we would talk about. And so if the label is getting in the way of having an understanding of the difference between deities that people believe, and just being hyperbolic and saying Taylor Swift is a god, Eric Clapton's a god, whatever, because that's just hyperbole. Nobody, I would say almost nobody actually thinks that either of them is a god in the deistic sense.
True. I have just one quick question, I guess, before I get out of here. Do you think it's useful at all, the idea of just reiterating to theist believers that they're choosing which God, and they're lifting, almost literally lifting the God above them? Is
I
that
don't think it's ever a useful thing to do, to tell people what their motivations are. I wouldn't want somebody to do that to me, and I won't
I didn't choose my
do
God.
that to others. Yeah. So, because I think most of them, and I firmly believe that you don't choose your beliefs. I really don't think that you do. I think that what you believe is because you were compelled, and you being compelled and convinced of something is an aspect of your cognition that's beyond your control. I don't think I can actively make a decision to believe something that I don't.
Yeah.
Nor, which, like, ascribing motivations to anybody for any reason is both unhelpful and incorrect when it comes to their beliefs and couching them as a choice.
The only time I'd think it would be useful is when they specifically said, here is my motivation. And then now you can address what they've claimed their motivation to be and saying, here are the problems I find with it. But outside of that, and they could be wrong about what their motivation is, because there are people who think that belief is a doxastic choice, that doxastic voluntarism is a thing. Shannon and I don't. We don't think that you choose your beliefs. But I know for a fact, I was presented with a God idea when I was a little kid, and I did not choose that God. I would not have chosen that God. I became convinced that that God was in fact real for really bad reasons, but I became convinced of that. And then there's the reinforcement and the indoctrination and all of that reinforces that idea. If people chose the God that they actually believed in, now they can choose to some extent how they act and everything else, and you could say, oh, I'm going to choose to be Wiccan. But that's about choosing what you're going to do in practice, not what you're convinced is real. And so I don't see any utility in asserting that somebody chooses their God. There's a difference between orthodoxy and orthopraxy. And orthodoxy is about the belief, and orthopraxy is about the practice. One of those, the doxy part, is what you are convinced of, and the praxy part is what you do. And only one of those two comes close to being an act of volition.
Okay. Thank you for your time.
Sure.
No problem. Have a good day, GJ.
Bye. You too.
It was convoluted. I'm still not 100% sure what he believes.
It was a circuitous path to get. I think what happens with some people, and here we are, I'm probably getting ready to do a little bit of the thing that you and I both just warned against. And I'm not saying that GJ necessarily did this. I think that there are people who, when they find out that they can't and don't believe particular theistic things, start searching around for what they can identify with. And if some seemingly good ideas that on the surface level feel right, creep in without a lot of critical examination, you can just run with it and go down that line. It's kind of like how conspiracy theorists can take disparate facts and they weave together a compelling narrative at the surface level, but once you dig below, it's not that persuasive. And I think what's happened with perhaps with GJ and some others is, oh, well, I have a religion, they have a religion, everybody picks their religion. You picked your church, which means you picked your religion, which means might as well just say you picked your God. And that oversimplifies the process by which people become convinced of things. And yeah, no, we get
Yeah.
there. All right.
I agree.
Well, we have a couple of atheist callers, and we're still waiting for more theistic callers. But while we wait, Nathan in Ohio is an atheist. Pronouns are he, him. Wants to ask a question about defending moral claims. So, Nathan, welcome. You're on with Shannon and Matt.
Hi.
Hey.
I'm fanboying out, not gonna lie. Been following you guys for a couple months now.
Well, I'm sure
I
I will
work at
piss
a,
you off and
food
disappoint
plant.
you in short order because I'm really good at that.
Oh, I doubt that.
I'll be delightful. Maybe. We'll see what happens.
Shannon, really quick.
Shannon and I are going to do coin tosses on who's good cop and who's bad cop. From now on.
I tend to swing pretty on delightful on a pretty like hair trigger from time to time.
Really
Yeah.
quick,
Go,
though,
sorry, go
Shannon.
ahead.
No, Shannon, really quick, if I could, what are your credentials? I'm just curious because on all the clips I've watched of you guys, I've never seen you talk about like your degrees or whatever.
I have an honors degree in psychology. It's a BA.
Oh, okay. Okay. I just, like I said, I was just wondering, there was a clip I watched last night where you went completely off the rails about statistics. I don't know if you had a math degree or what.
No, I took a lot of inferential statistics because I was doing my thesis research at the honors level, and you need to know a lot about inferential statistics in order to be able to do that. So I've taken
Gotcha.
a lot of statistic courses. But yeah, that's my background.
Okay. All right, cool. No, like I said, I was just curious. I'd never heard that before. Anyway,
Okay.
sorry. So what I'm curious about is tiny bit of backstory on this. I was on one of your clips online and I kind of got into it with somebody in the comments. Like I've always, like even since quote unquote going full atheist a couple years ago, I kind of always held that for the most part, morals were objective because like child abuse and, you know, just stuff like that is what I've always, it's what my brain has clung to, is like, well, obviously this is wrong. You know, there's no context in which it would be right. So that's kind of why my brain told me it was like more morality in it as a whole was objective. And so what I told the person that had commented, I said, no, or he said that morals were subjective. And I said, no, morals are objective, but it's our perception of them that's subjective. And then I brought up like child marriage and stuff like that. And I said that if you reduce, or if you, I think basically I claim that if you hold that morals are subjective, that's what you can reduce it down to, or that's where that can go. And I realize now that I was wrong, but I don't know why. So like, how do you defend subjective morality against the quote unquote, well, it was a different time argument?
You want to go or you want me? We're both probably going to say something similar, I think, Matt and I.
I will let you go because I talk a lot and I have about 20 minutes I could do on this specific thing because there's so much confusion over objective, subjective, and absolute and not absolute. And it's all about situational, but go for it.
Yeah, so I think that once you understand what the word morality means, like once you define the concept of morality, that gives you, I guess, what you would see as a subjective standard because we've defined that word and what it means. It doesn't exist in the ether for us to grab in any sort of tangible way. But I think that once you understand what that definition is, then that gives you a standard that you can take objective actions towards reaching and objectively take actions that are detrimental. So if you define it as something like flourishing or preventing harm or some combination of the two, if that's the definition of the term moral to you, and I think it is almost universally how that concept is perceived, then you can say, you know, if I do this, that either achieves that objective or goes against that objective, and you can make objective statements about that, but not until it's initially defined. And I think that initial definition, like where it's initially defined, is where people get caught up. I think that they think, well, because we're the ones initially defining it, that means that it's kind of up to our whims. And it's scary to people, I think, to think that there's not, some sort of like ingrained within all of us set of rules and regulations that we all must follow objectively. I think that that's kind of a nonsense concept, but the idea that that isn't a reality is scary to people, and people kind of recoil away from things that they're a little bit scared of. But that doesn't change it to me. I don't think that there is such a thing as, up in the universe, we can, grab a handful of morality and it exists in that regard. I think it's conceptual. But once you understand the concept, then you can take objective steps towards it. Like, if I want to win the race, I must run fast. That's an objective statement if you want to win the race. Now, there objectively is a race, but that race was created and configured by humans. Like, we decided that this is what a race is called. We decided the parameters to win that race. All of those things were defined by people. That doesn't mean that the race is right. Exactly. We do exactly. But that doesn't mean that the race itself doesn't exist, or that there's not a way to win the race simply because humans invented the concept of racing. Right? Like, if I want to win that race, that foot race, I must run fast. That is just objectively the case if I want to win the race, and that is a foot race. But the race itself and the entire concept of it, all of the accoutrements surrounding it, were invented conceptually by humans. That doesn't mean they don't exist. It just means that they are concepts we invented and then enacted.
And this is why instead of talking about objective morality and subjective morality, I talk about situational ethics. Because if you have a particular goal, there's nothing in the universe that says this should be the goal, like well-being should be the goal. I think it should be. I think you can make a case for it based on what we care about and who we are. But there's nothing in there that says that's necessarily the case. But once you decide on what the goal is, you can then make non-subjective assessments about whether or not your actions are more conducive to achieving the goal. The same as, in Shannon's race example, or I tend to use chess as an example. We made up the game, the rules are arbitrary, but there are objectively good moves and bad moves within the scope of the goal of trying not to lose the game. When somebody comes up with, and I think the thing you're struggling with, where you were specifically asking of, it was a different time. The question to ask on that is, why does that change the situation and the assessment of it? Because what they'll often say is, when you talk about something like slavery, back in those days, it was a different time. Okay, but does that mean that it was actually morally correct and morally permissible back then? And if so, why? Or was it immoral and they just were unaware of it or didn't care or whatever else? You have to ask, why does the time make a difference? Because there are situations where when it takes place is relevant because the situation is different, but it may not be that it was long ago that makes it different. It may be some other factor about long ago that might make it different. So you have to ask the question. If they're saying, oh, it was different back then, why? Because now you're looking for, are they justified in saying, yes, this should be viewed in a different light because it was a different time and there were different factors? Or are they actually wrong? Because when it comes to like the Bible's take on slavery, my position is it was never moral. Nobody's ever made a case for it being moral to own people as property. The Bible is wrong, and the people who accepted it and wrote it, whether it's a God or anybody else, were wrong about what was and what wasn't morally permissible. That doesn't mean there's not some scenario somewhere that we could imagine where it would be morally permissible to own someone as property. I have a really difficult time thinking of what that situation might be, but I don't know everything about every situation. So when somebody says, oh, it was a different time back then, it was different, you got to press them and say, okay, what does that change about it? Because if all you mean is people didn't know it was wrong, okay, it was still wrong.
Yeah, I think what a lot of apologists try to do is they try to use the wibbly wobbly, morally worley argument where they basically say, well, what you're doing is just putting morality into the realm of your opinion. That's what you're doing. You're just saying what you think is right and wrong is what's moral. And they're like completely ignoring and not acknowledging the fact that once you have a definition of what morality is, then you can take active steps to work towards it. And that definition is what's important. And that definition doesn't change through time. I think conceptually we all understand. It would be a strange world to me to live in, where if I say, well, define what moral is, that it doesn't have some component of harm reduction or encouragement of flourishing. There becomes nuance once you get into like specific contexts. There's obviously more nuance, like when like situationally, like what Matt was talking about. But that's just clearly the case, that is what morality is. That is what we are talking about. That is what it is, what we are seemingly alluding towards when we have these types of conversation. So kicking the can into context, like sociocultural and like the context in the past is them attempting to do that conflation, to say, well, you're just saying morality is your opinion then. Well, no, it's not, because my opinion could be something that even by my own standards isn't moral, right? Like if we're talking about this type of concept, you have to appeal to the concept, the construct, not simply someone's opinions about it.
Between the three of us, that was a lot,
Got
Nathan.
it.
So I want to make sure we check in and that was clear and helpful.
You got all that?
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot, but sorry, brain fart.
Okay.
Obviously, I'll have the call, to go back and watch at some point. As much as I hate listening to myself, but
I don't think you'll find you'll be listening to yourself that much, because we did all the talking.
No, which is fun. But if I could, that actually leads me into the second question that I wanted to ask.
Sure.
Matt, I know you're a big Star Trek person. Do you remember the Next Generation episode Devil's Due?
Yes.
That's one of my favorites. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh, so I had a headbanging, or there's a pastor that I'm acquainted with, and I had a phone call with him a couple of years ago, and I basically wanted to bang my head against the wall because I had a Devil's Due circular argument with him, and it was driving me nuts. I was at a loss as to how to come at it. Like, it was a circular argument of, I was a wild child, I did this and that, and I made the decision to do things God's way. Okay, so you made the decision, so you're capable of doing things. Well, no, I didn't do it, God did. But you just said you did. You can't take responsibility for making a positive change and then denounce that you had anything to do with the positive change. Like, is there a way out of that circle, or is it not, as long as they're theists?
I don't think I understand the question. Can you just do it one more time?
Sorry.
I think I understand it. It sounds like this pastor made a positive change in his life of whatever flavor that entails. And what Nathan is saying is, okay, you made a positive change, and he's acknowledging that he made a positive change, but the pastor is saying, well, it wasn't really me. It was God's influence over me that led to that positive change. It was God moving in my life.
Yeah.
That was the reason for that positive change, not me. I didn't do it alone. God did it. God did it for me, but also I did it.
I couldn't get him to take credit for the fact that he influenced his own well-being.
Does that make more sense now, Matt?
Yeah, I'm sorry. You threw me off with the Star Trek reference, because right away I say, yes, I know the episode, because even before you said the episode name, because I own them all and have watched them all multiple times, but I don't remember the specifics of Devil's Due from that, or why it's relevant to the pastor. So this notion
gotcha.
of,
I apologize.
that's fine. This notion of whether or not, like, if you're giving God credit for fixing your life and you're trying to convince this person that they should take credit for fixing it themselves, you might be spinning your wheels, and it might be better to say, how do you tell the difference between you did this and you're giving credit to God, and God actually did this? And how can you tell the difference? But more importantly, Pastor, how can I tell the difference? Because a lot of what you're going to get from religious people and pastors in particular is, even though it doesn't happen that much when they call in on shows like this, it's you just know. There is an unfakeable, ineffable quality of their interactions that they think are with a God, that are of such a nature that it can't be faked, it can't be duped, it can't be the devil fooling you, it can't be your brain or some psychological thing. It is necessarily from God because of the quality of it. And yet they have no way to demonstrate that this quality exists or is detectable or is identifiable. And so basically this is where you just get down to the, I know that I know that I know that I know that Jesus Christ is Lord, or whatever else, or that, that when the Holy Spirit touches you, it's the Holy Spirit. And yet how many former believers thought the same thing, felt the same thing, and now no longer believe it? You may just have to say, look, I can appreciate this. This is why I've said many times, if somebody calls in and says that they've had an experience with God, or they think they were abducted by aliens, I'm willing to believe that they've had an experience that they are generally trying to honestly evaluate and give an account for, but I do not accept their explanation for that experience. So when somebody says, hey, I was abducted by aliens, I'm happy to think that they had some experience and this is the best they can do in trying to explain it. But I'm not convinced they actually were abducted by aliens. I'm not convinced they actually interacted with the Holy Spirit or God or whatever else, because I need different evidence. A la Hume, revelation is necessarily first person, and to everyone else, it's hearsay.
Got it. Yeah, I've heard, I don't know how many calls I've heard from you guys that's that exact same kind of thing. So that makes perfect sense.
Cool.
What's one more?
Right. I guess I'm out. I want to leave you guys with a joke, though. How come there are no more gods in Mesopotamia?
I don't know.
Because Dagon.
Dagon, okay.
Got it. All right, Nathan.
No.
You're
done, Nathan. Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Hopefully that was beneficial. We've got a few more callers, including some theistic callers we're going to get to here in just a minute. If you're someone who believes something that you're pretty sure that Shannon and I don't, and you think we're missing out, are we missing out on a belief in a God or something supernatural? Or maybe we were both parts of or involved with the wrong types of religions or the wrong types of religious people. We're missing the key truth that you've somehow discovered. By all means, 720-619-2288 is the number to call. And you can also click below on the web link in the description to get in, and you will be put right to the head of the queue, along with the other theists. I mean, you're not going to the head of the theist queue just because you happen to have some notion like that. But that's true also. While this show, the Sunday show and the Sunday show After Dark, tends to focus on religious claims and claims about the supernatural, or people concerned about us as atheists or skeptics wanting to find out why we don't believe or why we feel the way we do about certain things, there are other shows on this network that focus on different things as well. For example, Skeptalk airs every Monday on this network. And the upcoming Skeptalk show is going to be John Gleason and London Storm. If you have, I don't know, some cryptozoological stuff or anything that isn't necessarily religion, that's the prime time to call. But you can also call in with religious stuff as well. I don't know London Storm, but I do know John, and John would be happy to take your calls on religious stuff, Jesus mythicism, whatever you've got in that realm as well. Tuesdays is a show Chewed Gum, which is hosted by Eve Was Framed and Alyssa Ljub, and it focuses on secular life and issues, responding to purity culture, responding to Christian and theological assertions about women's roles and about sexuality. It's quickly becoming one of my favorite shows on the network. They're all hot buttered awesome. Give them a listen on Tuesdays. Wednesdays, some dumbass that looks exactly like me and does way too much stuff and never shuts up.
Worst.
We'll be back on here with Dr. Aron Ra from Recovering from Religion, because we're gearing up to do a fundraiser once again for Recovering from Religion. I just recorded my little promo for that this morning. You guys have seen me, and for decades now, doing debates, doing call-in shows. That is just one tiny piece of what happens and what needs to happen to help people find their way out of religion and feel more and more comfortable challenging their religious beliefs, whether you want to, whatever label you want to refer to it as, deconverting, or I forget the other one that starts with a D that they use all the time. Deconstructing, however you want to call it. It's not always easy for people, and especially if they are alone and surrounded by a bunch of like-minded individuals that are sharing their religious beliefs. It doesn't give them the opportunity for support challenging it. Recovering from Religion is a wonderful organization that is not trying to convince you to be an atheist, but they are there to listen and lend an ear and provide resources for people who are challenging their religious beliefs or having difficult struggles with it, or presenting that from a responsible secular perspective. They are also, Daryl Ray also helped found the Secular Therapy Project. So if you want or need counseling for anything, and you do not want a counselor that's going to give you religious guidance, but you want just a secular, science-minded therapist, seculartherapy.org is the place to go for that. We will be doing that fundraiser this weekend. By all means, tune in, get ready for everything that's going on here on the line, and I'll get some more announcements about that coming up, because the pre-show is Friday, the charity event is Saturday, and then I'll be back for the Sunday show. But we have callers.
We sure do.
I'm gonna take this call. We had Paul call in, I think just Wednesday on the hang up. Paul, pronouns are he, him, from North Carolina, is a theist who has a question that I think we literally just answered, but
kind of, it's
but Paul may have a different way to phrase it. So Paul, you're on with Shannon and Matt.
Yeah, hey guys. Yeah, this is my third time calling in. The last one was Wednesday. So the reason I'm calling is actually because you just answered that. I kind of wanted to push into it a little bit more.
Sure.
Just about you. So you guys were talking about you don't think that you can choose to believe something. You're either convinced or you're not convinced.
What we're talking about is doxastic volunteerism and how you can't choose your belief in any simple sense, but continue.
Right. Okay. And so my question just kind of goes one step forward to, like, can you choose to convince yourself? And the reason I ask that is because, like, I've seen this happen within my own belief system, right? Like, if I'm struggling between, let's just say, some theological issue in the Bible, and I see it, I can see a significant amount of evidence for side A. I can see a significant amount of evidence for side B. Don't really know which one is sure, but I have to believe in one or the other. So I just say, okay, well, I'm just going to choose to believe this one. I feel convinced about this one. It doesn't always have to be that extreme, but I feel like there's an in-between.
You just contradicted yourself, though. You said, I choose to believe this, and then you said, immediately following that, you said, I feel convinced about. Those are conflicting statements.
yeah, I choose to be convinced by, like, in other words, I
How do
say
you
to myself, I could be convinced by evidence set A, and I could be convinced by evidence set B, but I'm just going to go with A. I'm going to choose that this is the more convincing one.
I think there's a
You just-
problem. So
Okay.
this is Shannon's wheelhouse, and if I were remotely smart, I'd stay out of it. But I think I heard something in what you said that might make this a little easier. My view
Yep, go
is
for it.
that to whatever extent I can choose anything, we'll set aside the whole issue of free will and do I make choices, and we'll just assume that I do. I can intentionally seek to indoctrinate myself, and I can seek to bias myself in such a way that I might eventually become convinced, whether it's me doing it or whatever, by saying, I'm only going to watch, let's say I'm only going to watch Fox News, I'm never going to watch MSNBC, or I'm only going to watch MSNBC and I'm never going to watch Fox News. And so I'm getting my news from one source. And when I start off, I know that this is biased. It's biased one way on one way or the other. But if I engage in that, then I've made a decision to only give myself access to a certain type of information, which can lead to me becoming convinced as a result of that biasing. When I say you don't choose your beliefs, I mean you cannot make a conscious decision to say, I just believe this, but you can choose to act as if you believe. And this is where you get the sort of fake it till you make it sort of mentality of, you know, we tell kids, hey, when you grow up, you can be anything, which is a damnable lie. They can't. But we don't know what kids can be, or each individual kid can be. And so if you tell every kid that you can be president, well, it's going to be true for some of them. But what they can do is by focusing their energy towards a goal, and acting as if they can believe it, they may eventually become convinced, but that is a particular biasing indoctrination process that they are just complicit in. That can happen, but not just, I'm going to choose to believe that I will be president one day. You can say that, you can act, but you're not actually convinced at that point, is my take. I don't know where Shannon might differ.
Can I?
I'm just.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Shannon.
I'm just I'm focusing in on the example that you gave. And I'm not sure if you even realize that you're doing it, but you keep like seeping into the realm of being compelled as opposed to it being a choice. So in your scenario, if I'm understanding it correctly, you're basically saying, okay, there's two equivalent propositions in front of me, and I've weighted them as at least roughly equivalent when I'm deliberating on, you know, if I'm convinced by them. And but they're in some way conflicting, I would guess. They would need to be in some way conflicting if you can only believe one of them in the end. So you're saying that you then arbitrarily choose one, like you spin a wheel and then decide which one you're going to believe? Because that seems to be what you're arguing for, is that you can just arbitrarily at random select one and then actually assimilate that as a belief. But when you're describing it, you're saying, okay, well, one of them is just slightly more compelling, or one of them has slightly better evidence, which means that you're entering into like a cognitive deliberation where that evidence is being weighted and you're leaning towards one for whatever reason. You are leaning towards one. And I don't believe that that is just an arbitrary choice. Like, imagine a world where everything that we assimilate as a belief into our mind was just some sort of arbitrary, non-deliberative choice. That's not only that would be chaos, and it doesn't seem feasible when you actually understand the framing. Like, when you're presented with things, you're not presented with them and just saying, okay, well, this one, I guess, no particular reason. In fact, I actually maybe even believe the other one more. That evidence is more compelling. But I mean, I get to make the choice of what I believe. So I believe this one. Even in that scenario, there's no taking deliberation out of it. Like, there's always a reason. There's always an underlying reason. And that reason is what's compelling you.
Yeah. So I guess it's in the realm of what I'm asking, right? I'm not stating, oh, you just spin a wheel, but I'm kind of asking, like, how do you, how do you get to that point? I'll give you a more specific example.
Sure.
Just so that we have, a framework here. And actually, I'm thinking of two examples, but we'll just start with one.
Yeah, start with one.
So, just within Christian theological doctrine, right? An easy example of this is baptism. Matt, being a former Baptist seminary student, will be quite well aware of the different sides of this. You probably will too, Shannon. But
yeah, what age is baptism? You need to be cognitively able to accept it and choose it for yourself versus from birth,
exactly.
or unless you're talking about immersion versus sprinkling, because there's all kinds of debates about baptism depending on which church you go to.
Right. Exactly. So most prevalent, let's say, paedo-baptism, so baptizing of infants in a Presbyterian manner, as opposed to credo-baptism. You have to make a profession of faith. An example of this would be like when I look in the Bible, and I'm not here to defend the Bible. It's just an example of a belief system, so that we can be specific. When I look in the Bible, I see, in my opinion, equally sound evidence. I don't know if sound is the right word, but equal amount of evidence that I could look in there and I could say, I believe that it's paedo-baptism, and here's all the reasons why. Here's a biblical theology, a systematic theology, proof text, whatever. And I lay all that out, and I'll be convinced. And then I can do the exact same thing 10 minutes later, and the other way. And
so
say,
which one are you convinced is the right one? No, Paul, of those two options, which one are you convinced is the right one? Which one do you believe? Sorry, which one do you believe is the right one of those two choices?
So this is my point. So this is my entire point, is that I guess Matt and you guys would want me to just stay in the I'm not sure camp, because in fact I don't
care which camp you're like.
However,
I want you to pick your flag in something, like own it. You either haven't made a choice because you're not compelled either way and you don't believe either of them, right? And that's okay. That's viable. That's a place you can exist. I'm not forcing you into saying that you have to make a decision one way or the other.
Front, I think we'd rather you didn't believe any of them.
Right? Maybe both of them are wrong. There's an invisible third option here.
I think the point is
that's why I just give you a random. I think the point is random.
I think the point is what you're describing is that you are vacillating. You can see a case for A and you can see a case for B. And at any given moment, you may or may not lean one way or the other for reasons you may not even fully understand. But you definitely, I would hope, would agree that you can't believe both of them are correct at the same time, right?
Right. Yeah. So I would believe that either A is correct or B is correct, or in theory, neither is correct. And the problem is when I get in a situation where I must choose one or the other. But what
is that situation? What is the situation where you must make a choice and yet you don't know which one is right?
Well, so specifically is that I'm myself a seminary student, and I have to decide if I'm going to be a minister, what denomination that I want to be a minister in. Right. And so if I become a Baptist minister, I must believe this way. If I become a Presbyterian minister, I must believe that way, and affirm it to people who will be, confirming me. So I kind of believe both ways, but they say, if you want to be here, you must believe this. If you want to be here, you must believe this. So then I'm left in the place where I have to go, okay, I'm just going to decide to believe that. I'm going to decide to believe A. I'm going to decide to believe B.
There's a difference between deciding to believe A and deciding to profess a belief in A, or deciding to act in accordance with a belief in A, or pretend to believe A. If you can't decide between whether or not you should be baptizing babies or not, you're still going to make a decision, and you're going to make a decision about which way you're going to go. But that doesn't mean that you're convinced that it's right. You're now no longer deciding. You're not at that point deciding what you believe is true. You are deciding which action you are going to take, because I don't know where you pick up a die. And you roll it. I don't know how the die is going to come out. I don't know. All 6 options on a standard die are theoretically even. And yet if you put a gun to my head and force me to place a bet, I'll bet on a number. I will make a choice, but that doesn't mean that I believe that's the one that's actually going to come up. And I think that what you're talking about in here and making a decision is the issue is not clear. Although I would actually argue as a Southern Baptist that it is clear, but we can get into what the Bible does or doesn't say about baptism later. The baptism of infants is heretical, but whatever it is, you're going to make a decision.
But okay,
you're going to make a decision about what you're going to do, and that is a separate decision than what you're going to believe. And by the way, if they're saying, oh, I'm going to be a Baptist minister, I'm going to be a Presbyterian minister, whatever, I realize these are examples and you're not necessarily saying this is the choice. But if they're going to say, you have to believe this, if they're not open to the possibility, if it's such a hairline issue where you can vacillate back and forth between yay or nay, left and right, most churches don't necessarily hold this as a core tenet of salvation because they recognize that there's a case to be made in either direction. For me, this raises a completely different issue. And I swear I'm not trying to be a dick to you, Paul. We had a good conversation the other day. We had a good conversation today. Why the fuck has God not clarified what the correct answer is for this, such that you, studying to be a minister, are left floundering and thinking that you're going to have to make a choice? And why not ask God? Why can't God tell you? And that, to me, makes all of the questions about whether or not infant baptism is right or wrong irrelevant, because the entire theology falls apart with the fact that you don't have a clear answer. Which is how I ended up here.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So let me make one comment about something you said earlier, and then a comment about that. The first is I'm following your line of thinking about the decision to do or not, and I think something that you said earlier clarifies that even more and puts it in perspective when you say that with the self-indoctrination. So, when you first said, well, you just self-indoctrinate yourself, I'm like, no, you're looking at the evidence, whatever. But then I think you tie those two together. It's like, okay, I decide that I'm going to act in accordance with A, and then because I've decided that I'm going to act in accordance with A, then I will indoctrinate myself with A.
It's gonna help with your biases for sure, because you're gonna anchor yourself to your choice emotionally and want to find reasons to reinforce it, which could lead to a belief where before you were just choosing which direction to adhere to because you feel like you're dissonant about being about a choice, and you're in a position where you must make one in order to progress or proceed on whatever path you're choosing. So because you have to make a choice and that deliberation isn't clear to you because there is no clear, well-defined answer, you need to pick one. That doesn't mean that you believe it is or is not the correct one or the right one. It just means that you need to find a choice that's the least objectionable to adhere to in order to progress. Right? That's what it sounds like.
Yep. Yeah.
Which is going to come with a lot of other nuance too. There's other factors that are going to go into that decision. It could be that you found a church that you really like with a congregation you really like, and there's an opportunity there, and they believe this type of baptism versus the other type of baptism is the right type of baptism. That is going to cause you cognitive pressure to lean towards that, which may cause you to have a bias towards that, which is going to have an effect on your decision making, whether conscious or not.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah. I think that makes a lot of sense, and so thank you for talking about that, because I really appreciate it. Just to quickly touch the other comment that Matt said, which I'm a little scared to touch, but my personal answer to why it is not so clear in Scripture is normally because I'm not really sure that it's all that important. Which method that you do. That's normally what I say is like, if God really cared exactly the mode that you were baptized, he would tell you exactly how to be baptized. He really cared about circumcision. You had to do it on an exact day, in an exact way, in an exact place. So he outlined that. So which is
already pretty weird. So congrats on that one.
Well, yeah, it is weird. I'm granting that it's weird, but anyway, so that's my typical answer to that. And then just to clarify, any church that I would ever attend, serve at, anything like that, would not hold that baptism is central to salvation. And so they would probably think it's also not as important which way you do, at least for a member. But when you are a pastor and the person that you have to perform the baptism and you have to give the teachings of the church, in that case, you have to decide. Because
sounds to me like you've already landed on a belief. And it's both, not neither. You've already landed on a belief, and it doesn't exist within that dichotomy. You found a way down a different road to resolve that dissonance, and that was to accept them both simultaneously, even though they conflict with one another.
Yeah. What? Yes.
So your dissonance resolution was to accept two conflicting. Because you didn't want to give up the overlying belief system, your resolution to the dissonance when you knew that these two things were conflicting was to accept them both, even though they contradict each other. That's
or just reject them.
This is what I'm talking about when I'm saying that we don't choose what we're believing. Your belief is based on dissonance resolution, because there is no clear answer.
I think that you can say. My answer is less. Choose them both despite the fact that they conflict with each other, and more they're both valid and therefore they don't conflict with each other. Because
they do conflict with each other.
In other words, your view of baptism is that if it was important one way or the other, God would have said something to make it clear. And so it doesn't really matter that much, and it's far more important that we focus on the other things and maybe not spend so much mired down in whether or not infant baptism is heretical or not. I would agree.
And get baptized. Just get baptized one way or the other.
I would agree that it seems reasonable to say that if this were a big deal, God would have clarified it. However, that's only true if we have good reason to think that God is actually doing any work to clarify anything. Because right now there are over 1,000 denominations that all identify as Christian and that disagree on every single possible point of doctrine at some point. And yet God doesn't seem to be clearing any of it up. And if in fact the issue of baptism is a stumbling block that is causing friction between denominations, which it absolutely is, then it's not enough to just say, if it was important, God would clarify. God has a moral responsibility to clarify in order to end the derision and division between the denominations. And that hasn't happened.
Yeah, I mean, I've listened to you enough to that I probably could have articulated that and said, "Hey, Matt, this is probably your view on that." And I'm not prepared to mount a response to that in this moment.
That's fine.
By the
way,
I totally understand your.
No, I appreciate that, Paul, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot. When you are prepared, though, one of the things you can do is you can go over to QANAline.com and submit an application to be on IndBoss or one of the other debate things where you don't have to just call in and wait in the queue, but we can prepare an actual episode where you and I can have a debate about some point of doctrine or some demonstration that God exists or whatever it is you want to talk about. Thank you for allowing me to get the advertisement in. My producers will be very happy.
I got you, Matt. I got your back there.
Thanks, Paul.
Yeah, that would be fun.
I got to let you go. We got to move on to some other callers, but I appreciate the call.
Thanks, Paul.
Absolutely.
Take care.
He seems nice.
It's nice when Christians call in on Sunday instead of going to evening services. Sorry.
He's got
For
studying
all I
to
know,
do.
he's in a time zone where he went and came back, or he's getting ready to go right now. We just caught him beforehand.
Or it's just
Oh.
not a doctrine that is necessary in order. It's not a salvation
Well,
one. Going to
so, you know,
nighttime services.
my parents pretty much only ever went to Sunday morning services. It was rare occasions where they might go to Sunday evening, and they didn't frequently go to Wednesday evening services, but they would go on occasion. I was going Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night. Monday night was visitation. Thursday night was youth group stuff, and then there was, you know, other stuff on the weekends. A good chunk of that's because that's where my friends were. I went to a high school where there were like 969 kids in my graduating class. The year after I graduated, they split the high school in half because it was too big. And so they had built up another school and they cut it in half. But as such, when you're in a high school with, you know, about 1,000 kids in your graduating class, and you've got, you know, four classes, 4 years of freshman, sophomore, junior, senior there, that's 4,000 or 5,000 kids. And you'll have a handful of friends, and that's it. You know, I didn't have to deal with a lot of bullying in high school, and I don't know that too many people did. There were not, you know, there were little cliques and groups and everything else, but I hung around mostly with my friends from church, because it was easier. By the way, I was doing Dan Dennett died last week. Dan Dennett's a philosopher who was incredibly important in my views on religion and philosophy, famously known as one of the Four Horsemen, along with Hitchens, Harrison, Dawkins. We exchanged emails a couple times, but we never met in person. And I don't care if he ended up having some problematic views or whatever else. His thoughts on philosophy were important to me. Great book, Breaking the Spell, looked at religion and the ways in which we might psychologically develop religions. He did great work on free will. He was a compatibilist and one of the staunch defenders of compatibilism. Famously, when him and Sam Harris got into it, he said that Sam Harris is a compatibilist. He just doesn't know it. And I agree that Sam and my view, which are pretty much the same on free will, is compatible with Dennett's compatibilism. And yet nowadays, I would just probably not say that I'm a compatibilist in the sense that I think that free will is not incompatible with determinism. But in the truest sense, I'm not convinced that we have free will, just that we have will, and we may never know how free it is or isn't. But an interesting thing happened, and it's a long way for me to get around to this. This is the weirdest side note. As I was searching for Dan to pull up his Wikipedia article to get some information to post on Facebook, I typed in Dan and then space and then the letter D. And the first name that came up, and I don't know if this is true for everybody else, the rest of you, what the heck, let's give him some hits. If you type in Dan space D into Google, my first result was Dan Druff, Druff. And I went to high school with that guy. His name was Dan Irving. He's a guitarist, a guitar tech, and other stuff, but the name that he gave himself was Dan Druff. I don't know if that's what comes up for everybody else, but it was so funny to see a name and a person that I haven't seen since high school pop up on a search that it distracted me from actually looking up information on Dan Dennett. Did you get Druff as well?
No, I got Dan Duran.
Oh, there you go.
See that?
So
Dan Duran.
Yeah. If anybody else got Dan Druff,
he was in there. Dan Druff was in there. He's a guitarist or something.
Yeah. Went to high school with that guy. And I doubt he'll ever see this, but Dan, if you see it, I found you in a Google search the other day. I hope you're doing well. All right. Our next theist call is Dina, who previously, I guess, called. Yes, and calling to check back in. Dina, pronouns she, her. Welcome back, Dina. You're on with Shannon and Matt. How are you?
I'm good. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Hi, Dina.
Okay, good.
Yep.
I've talked to Matt before. I am Amish, and I'm trying to get out of the faith, out of the Amish religion. I'm not living with them anymore. And I did speak with Matt and Jimmy in the past.
Yeah.
And I wanted to kind of update things. Matt introduced me to Recovering from Religion, and they have been tremendously helpful.
Oh, good.
I have a lawyer through them. I don't have my children yet. I'm still trying to get them. I made some mistakes, and it cost me some time, but I'm working through that. I did want to ask. I don't know if it's okay to ask, Matt. Did you believe in God before, or were you a Christian before?
Yeah. I walked down the aisle at the age of 5 at Gashland Baptist Church in Kansas City, accepted Jesus into my heart, and was active in the church, including First Baptist Church of Harvester in St. Charles, all the way up until I graduated high school. And I thought that God wanted me to be a minister, which is evidently what my mom thought and what some of the people in the church thought. And I was terrified of it. So I left and joined the Navy, and I spent 8.5 years in the Navy. And then after I got out, I worked in tech for a while, and I lost my job, and I thought God was punishing me for not being a minister. So I said, okay, I'll do it. And in that process of trying to be the best Christian I could be, I found my way out, and I'm a big old godless heathen now.
And Shannon, I'm not familiar with you. Were you a Christian at some point?
Oh yeah, competitively. I was very, very, very Christian. I was a different flavor of Christian, though. I was an Anglican. I was the youngest altar person in the church, the first female altar person in the church. I was confirmed at 8 years old in a classroom. I remember having to go to the junior high because that's where the confirmation classes were. After school, my grandmother would take me to the junior high school, and I would sit in a classroom doing my confirmation lessons with a bunch of 14-year-olds, 13-year-olds, because that was the age most people were getting it done. And I was in I can't remember if it was grade 4 or grade 5, however old you are when you're 8 or 9. And I sang at the church. I was active in the youth group. I was very super duper into it, all in. Not anymore. Big old godless heathen also.
I just wondered about your background. I am living away from my family right now. And I have lawyers helping me. And the Amish have many lawyers working for them. My husband has my children at this time, and I have not been able to see them in several months, which has been very difficult, but I am trying very hard to get custody of them. I'm staying with a friend. She's been wonderfully helpful. And right now, I did want, the main reason I called is for some advice. There's a Baptist pastor in our community who has offered me a lot of help to help me find a place to live, help me with getting my children back, help me with many things. My friend is not very keen on this, and I'm not so sure that I want his help, but people are telling me, well, he's done this for others, and I really want to stay away from the church, but I'm not really sure what to do.
I don't know what his motivations are. It could be the case that they are predatory gifts, which is creating a disparity where now he's making you feel as though you owe him, or at least owe the church community, something that will tether you to them. That is plausible. it is also plausible that he just does see somebody who needs help and is a human that wants to help other people. Both of those are equally plausible, not knowing him. And I don't want to ascribe detrimental motives to him just based on a bias I have surrounding churches in general and how that they can engage in predatory activities without knowing the full context.
Yeah, I just don't feel very good about it. I feel
don't
like
do it.
he to come over. Yeah, I just feel like he's not for the Amish, but he wants me to be for the Baptist. And right now, I just don't know how I feel about God. I told Matt before that I was basically given to my husband when I was 14, and God has not answered any of my prayers, and I just don't know how I feel about God. And I have a regular counselor through Freedom from Religion, and my counselor says that I need to not associate with anything that is religion oriented right now, and look at things from a secular viewpoint and compare them. And it's hard for me.
I know. It's like woman to woman, Dina, trust your ick. When you feel the ick, trust the ick. Don't feel as though you are put in a position because there's a power disparity where you have to do something if you feel like it might even border on potentially being predatory. And if your counselor is telling you that maybe you should stay away from religious institutions right now, and kind of do your own healing and deliberation, it's worth listening to what your counselor says. You're in a state of vulnerability right now, and that state of vulnerability might make you more susceptible to predatory behavior and also more susceptible to falling into previous patterns of I don't know what the word I'm looking for here is, not the best choices of behavior patterns,
Right.
but familiar behavior patterns. Sometimes we go with the familiar because familiar is almost tantamount to comfortable. And if you're going into another church situation, that sort of familiarity can give you that sense of what feels like comfort, which would allow you to fall into those behavioral patterns that led you here in the first place again, before you're in a mental state, in a cognitive place that would allow you the clear and concise freedom to do the real work of deliberating on what your belief system is. You need to sort that out for yourself before somebody else attempts to, or another institution attempts to try to figure it out for you while you're vulnerable. That's not to say that you won't ever go back to a church one day. That's a choice that only you can make. I can say comfortably that you don't need to. There's a lot of other things in the world outside of the church that can and will be here to support you. But that's ultimately going to be your choice. But you need to be in a healthy and stable mental state outside of the religious trauma that I'm sure you're going through right now with your counselor, in order to be able to make a satisfactory determination on if that is what is right for you. And it doesn't sound like that's a place where you are currently. And if you're setting boundaries with them, if you're saying listen, I'm not interested in going to church right now, and I appreciate your help, if you're willing to give it without any caveats, without any strings attached, then I'm willing to accept it. But if there are strings attached, then that's going to be pressing boundaries for me. And I'm not in a place where I'm willing to accept anybody in my life who is going to press against my boundaries, because that's how I got to this situation to begin with. And it's no longer acceptable for me.
Right. I do feel that there's a good chance I will lose my children to my husband and back to the Amish community. That's my biggest fear. And it's a tight community, and they hold on very tight. So I'm very concerned about my children, my one child in particular, who is suffering some things that needs medical attention. But the last time I saw my husband, I hit him with a baseball bat, and I just lost it and hit him with a baseball bat and made things worse. And so he pressed charges, but now he's dropped the charges if I don't try to take the children. So now I have a lawyer involved.
I'm glad you have a lawyer, and I'm glad that you're doing counseling. I don't know what your situation is, but I can't condone that choice unless it was in some form of self-defense. But I can understand what being pushed to the brink feels like and how that choice can be made. And I'm really, really sorry that you're in this circumstance.
Choice. It was self-defense somewhat, but it was the wrong choice.
Oh, yeah, I'm so sorry that you're going through all this.
You've got a lot going on, Dina. And I'm in complete agreement with Shannon, so there's no reason to dig through all that, trust your ick and everything else. I will say, if there is a God and it has some important message or requirement for you, the onus is on that God to deliver it in a way that you can at least reasonably understand it. And if the pastor that's trying to help you out is doing so with the best intentions, then nothing about God should ever come up. Because God can wait. And if God can't wait, God should be the one telling you that, not some pastor. It may be an opportunistic, act of kindness, or it may be a genuine one. But you're under no obligation to owe anybody anything right now, except for your children and the law. You've got to fix the things that and make amends for and seek corrections for the things that you've done wrong, and make the best decisions that give you the best chance at spending time with your children again. And none of the rest of it matters. And anybody that's trying to get you right with God to do that is either trying to manipulate you or trying to help you manipulate somebody else. And all of that needs to wait. You got some work to do on you while you're going through something absolutely terrible. And I'm not going to judge the process that led to the decisions you've made, but that's where you've got to focus, in my view. And don't worry about God, don't worry about pastors. Just, what do I need to do to have some reasonable hope of interacting with my kids? And that's the sole focus, to get your life back on track, away from your husband, and hopefully interacting with your kids.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, go forth and take care of yourself, Dina, and I hope that things start working out better in your favor, in particular for your kids. I appreciate you calling us back to give us an update.
Thank you.
Good luck, Dina.
All right. Dina had called before, and some other people had emailed on behalf of Dina, and so I'm glad that recovering from religion was at least somewhat beneficial. It's really easy to look at a situation like that and fall instantly into the, you definitely had no excuse to take a baseball bat to him, or to fall into the other camp of, I completely understand and you were justified thing. None of us are there. None of us know the situation. And rather than judging that and trying to put some blame somewhere, let's just get the shit fixed, because there's kids involved here that, for all, I don't know Dina at all. It's entirely possible that Dina's kids are better off away from Dina. It's entirely possible that her kids need to be with her and away from the husband and the Amish church. I don't know. But I do know that if you're actively focused on secondary and tertiary issues that are, is this religion correct? Is this other religion correct? Is this pastor taking advantage of me? Are they just being nice? All of that stuff is secondary to what needs to happen to fix this situation, to where she's living her best life away from the difficult situation that led to all that. And her kids, even more than that, are well taken care of and are in and have interactions with responsible, healthy parents to the best that they can.
Yeah. Ugh,
We got
it's my heart.
2 calls left that we'll try to do really efficiently, but Carvin has
Speed
been
run.
on hold for an hour and 15 minutes, so I don't necessarily think it's best for us to speed run it. But pronouns are she, her, from North Carolina, a deconstructor who wants to talk about maintaining relationships. So is it Carvin or Carvon?
It's Carvin.
Carvin, welcome.
You got you, you guys probably don't remember me. It's been about 6 months.
Yeah, you
but
called back in October, but I don't remember the specifics.
Yeah, I grew up Baptist and had a lot of stuff happen in my life, and had an essay through the church, and then my family are like praise band in the praise band and stuff like that, so
Yeah.
really religious. And I decided a couple months ago that I was going to tell them that I decided to be agnostic, because I thought it would be easier to say, and explain to them that. And so now I'm just
How'd
kind
that
of
go?
like, they're kind of a don't know what to say stage. 'Cause, I mean, they know what I've gone through, and like trying to like put my abuser behind bars and different things like that. And so I think they might just think I'm like being bitter or mad at God, and it'll come back. But I feel like I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop, like that they're going to start debating with me or something. I have had a couple friends that have told me that I'm going to hell, so that was fun.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Using the term friend a lot more fast and loose than I would.
Yeah. But
Mm.
like it's really funny how stuff happens in your life, and you decide to not believe what you have believed, and all of a sudden you seem like you're the bad guy in some way. It's like you're fine and if you're like researching and like reading the Bible and stuff like that, but then when you decide the wrong thing, all of a sudden it's a different story. And I've heard that over and over again for several people when I'm watching all these videos and stuff of other people going through the same stuff. So, but I think my main question is that that I don't know how to interact with loved ones when they believe or in a position that of so opposite of me now. Because like my family and most of the people around me are like MAGA Baptists, you know what I'm saying?
Oh,
Yeah.
oh wow.
So,
Okay, yeah, that's 2 levels of hard to deal with. That's layers of difficult conversations.
And young Earth my young Earth creationist, yeah. So
That's 3.
and yeah. And I mean it is also a grading process, because like I did enjoy going to like the more liberal churches, and I used to go to a Unitarian Universalist church, and United Church of Christ, and we ended up at a United Methodist church at the end of it, and they're really nice people, and I enjoyed being around them. But it's different when you change sides. I guess would be the easiest way to say it.
Are you
Or,
looking to figure out how to best interact with them, or is some aspect of you looking for a community where you can just discuss the types of things that you're going through during deconstruction and because I know one of the really difficult things, something that I found specifically difficult, not to project it upon you, but wondering if your situation is similar, is the people around me were, at least on the surface, supportive. And by supportive, I mean, like, I wasn't shunned, right? And when I set boundaries, saying, like, I don't really want to talk too much about, like, religious things, like, let's focus on our relationship, though for the most part those were respected. But what I found it difficult is that when I set that boundary, I had to exist on the other side of it in an equivalent fashion. If I didn't want them coming up to talk to me about religion, I was going to come up to them and talk to them about my deconstruction, which left me in a place of isolation, because they could still converse amongst themselves about their belief system and their ideologies because they overlapped and intertwined, whereas I felt like I was no longer a part of that group. So when they were having these discussions where religion was ultimately an underlying factor at the bare minimum, I was now not able to converse with them in the same way because my position was diametrically opposed to theirs. So I had no one to talk to about my deconversion because I couldn't talk to them about it. And when they were having conversations, I no longer felt like I was a part of those conversations. I felt like I was a spectator of them instead. Because my only option in those conversations was to be like, oh, well, I don't believe that, and here's why, which would then create kind of like an argumentative stance or perception of me, even though that was just me stating my opinion, just like they were stating theirs. Is that similar? I'm just trying to understand
Yeah,
what dynamic you're looking to have.
Yeah, that's kind of that, and then also like just kind of like I told them like, hey, if you have questions, we can ask questions, but like also like learning how to have boundaries, because like I mean, being in a very like patriarchal kind of family and stuff like that. Well, my mom's pretty strong minded too, but like that, you believe this and you follow your family, and it's like God's family, and then you kind of thing. And even though I'm like 31, it's still kind of that way,
Mm-hmm.
So it's trying to set boundaries and learning to set boundaries. And I've worked with my therapist about setting boundaries and learning how to do that with everything, instead of just freezing and going quiet. So that's been a process for sure. But just trying to, cause I mean, I have friends that are atheists. A lot of my friends are atheists, and they've been before when I was religious, but like they don't live near me. So like, it's mostly like phone calls and stuff like that, or sending reels to each other and things like that. But yeah, like having a group to talk to, but also like with my husband, I want to talk to him about stuff, but also like respect him, and if he wants to go to church and do things, but also like, he wants me to want to do church things, and I tell him like, I don't really want to, but if you want to go and you need me to go with you, I'll go with you. But like, I'm not going to be the one instigating it anymore, because I was always the instigator and stuff.
Got you. So I feel like what it comes down to is in almost anything, it's trying to figure out what the actual foundation of the relationship is. Because, contrary to dogmatic belief, religion is not and should not be the foundation for anybody's interpersonal relationships. And if we're placed into a position where where it's seen as kind of the bedrock, or the perception is that it's the bedrock, then when somebody's beliefs shifts, the relationship shifts along with the beliefs. It sounds like you're showing your husband respect for his beliefs by showing up to support him, even though you don't believe in what's going on in the church, but at least to be present with him, because that's something that he sees valuable. Is that something that's comfortable for you? Are you comfortable when you go and do that? Or are you putting yourself in a place of discomfort to avoid conflict?
It depends on which church. If it's going to our Methodist church, I'm not as uncomfortable.
Okay.
But like if we go to like my family church or his family's church, it's a little uncomfortable because they're the same kind of Baptist, like the non-denominational Baptist kind of thing. So, but yeah, it's I'm trying to think the word. I think a lot of it is also like me getting used to this new normal of like being now an atheist and saying it out loud and stuff like that. Because it's not something I chose for myself, which is like what I was agreeing with you earlier. It's like it's just something that kind of happened. And after a while, like reading the Bible and then experiencing the experience I've had, and similar to you, I have fibromyalgia, which is a lot like MS, but MS is a lot worse. But like having all these difficulties and not getting my prayers answered and things like that, and then also like delving into these things and finding out a lot of this stuff isn't true because like I went to school for science and how like science and evolution don't really coincide. All those things will just add up and to the point where like it tips over and you're just left with ruins of your life essentially trying to build back up and figure out how to survive again. And I think that my husband and I, we didn't have a foundation of religious belief as our foundation of our relationship. I've always kind of been flighty and when it comes to spirituality, I've just like jumped to different things. But I think what pulled him off kilter was that I don't believe in a God or something. Like he was fine with me believing in like spirits and whatever. But the fact that I don't believe in his perception, don't believe in something making the world or something like that, it kind of threw him off guard.
What's his biggest worry on that front? Like if when you don't believe the same thing he does, he's open to you believing some things that are slightly different. But as soon as you get to, I'm not convinced there's a creator God. Is it about the creator God thing at all? Or is it about salvation and eternity? Or is it about, moral failings or concerns, or just a fear of the unknown? I mean, have you had the conversation with what is it that's most troubling for you?
I didn't have a direct conversation about that, but I feel like that he, I think he said that I don't believe in heaven and hell anymore.
Yeah.
And then, and now even ghosts, because he likes to talk about that kind of stuff too. But like, because I have talked about like how one of his best friends is atheist, and he doesn't have a problem with him being atheist or whatever, but he does have a problem with me being atheist. But I don't know. I think it's definitely a conversation we need to delve into more. But
yeah,
it's not going to be an easy answer. And it sounded like you said that you were going to see a therapist or counselor. Is it plausible that he might join you in because when a partner goes through a deconversion, the other person now does to a certain degree have to grapple with a change in the dynamic of the relationship, and they can handle it poorly or well. Maybe some counseling together to have somebody facilitate a conversation might be worth trying.
I asked if he wanted to go to therapy, and he said no. So, but I have been going to therapy since it's been a few years, I think now, but like it's been really helpful for me, but for some people it's harder to get them to go to therapy.
True.
So I'm not going to try to push him to do something he doesn't want to do, but like,
Yeah,
you know, just told him like, you know, I'm open to conversation, and you know, we still get along, and with everything else, I think it's just the change in dynamic of what I believe or don't believe now. And we're very opposite anyway, so like it's not. I think it just throws another opposition in the mix. I think that was kind of scary too, because like I'm like a environmentalist vegetarian who's now an atheist, and he's a Christian Trump supporter.
Oh,
who's
goodness.
a meat eater and a hunter. So
Apples and oranges.
yeah,
Goodness gracious. So you guys have a lot of bridges to cross to get to each other then, is what it sounds like.
yeah, but we
And
do
you still choose
enjoy.
each other.
Yeah, we have a lot of fun together, and we watch a lot of shows and movies together, and like a lot of culture stuff we like together. So and I wouldn't call him like an overly devout Christian. Like he's kind of like what people would call a lukewarm Christian.
Mm-hmm.
But
I hear you.
yeah, so like
It's
he'll
not.
show off. He'll cuss and stuff and drink and whatever, but then also like he's like, I'm gonna go to church.
Not to kind of short circuit any of this. It really sounds
No,
like, and you know, if he's not willing to go to therapy with you or counseling with you, that would be one of the things that I would think you should talk about with your counselor, with your therapist, because they're going to know better than Shannon and I will whether or not
Sure.
that should be considered almost a deal breaker. Not that there's that many counselors that are just going to tell you flat out, oh, that's a deal breaker, but you've got stuff to work on about yourself. And one of the things that I keep reminding people is that, you know, it's not your fault. You aren't the one to blame, but you are the person in the relationship who changed. And that's going to take some time for the other person to come to grips with. And it may wind up working out where you both change and you make some progress together. And, you know, hey, I've met couples where one of them found their way out of religion and the other one was, you know, resistant and antagonistic. And then eventually they both find their way out because, you know, maybe there's a grand love story and their love is just triumphs over everything. Or maybe they're just, you know, they care about each other enough to listen and interact. But you have to give him time and space to come to grips with these changes. And so the primary focus, make sure you're taking care of yourself and talking to your counselor or therapist about this, because they're going to know at what point, if there is a point, and I would imagine there is, but I'm not an expert, at what point it's essential for the two of you to change the way you communicate, to stop setting aside issues that are uncomfortable and actually address them. And whether it's better for the two of you to address them in therapy together, or for the two of you to address them together privately and for you to bring them in to therapy. But I'm not a therapist, so I can't say, and I'm definitely not your therapist. So even if I was a therapist, I wouldn't say.
well, yeah, thank you for that advice. That's definitely helpful. And I feel like another thing is that he's never read the Bible all the way through, and I haven't all the way through either technically, but I know a good chunk of
Doesn't matter.
the New Testament because it doesn't matter.
Nah, it doesn't matter.
That
It's
just makes him like
what
90% of Christians.
yeah, he's like everybody else. But even if he'd read it, even if he knew it all backwards and forwards or hadn't read it, none of that has anything to do with your relationship with him and his relationship with you. If he's struggling over aspects of his Christianity, odds are good that he'll end up talking to a pastor or a friend within the church about some of these issues. And as long as you're there talking to him as well and letting him know how you feel and what you think, whether or not he's read the Bible or studied it in depth is completely irrelevant. And any attempt to bring up something like that, like, it's going to feel like, well, you're not even that serious about this stuff. How can it bother you? And it may be true, but I don't know that that truth is particularly productive right now.
Mm-hmm. And I guess that's kind of where I was coming, because I'm very much like a research kind of person, and I was like, see, you just look at the research, you look at the data here that's in this book, you'll see it's not what people are saying it is. And then he's just like, well, I don't want to read that.
If
Damn,
it
I
was
wish it
that
was that
easy,
easy. Oh,
if it was that easy, Shannon and I would have changed the whole fucking world already. 20 years I've been doing this. If it was that easy, there'd be no Christians left.
But just look at these facts. Oh, okay, you're right. I sure do wish that that's the way that works. Goodness gracious.
I apologize too, Carvin, but we've got to wrap this up. I got one more call to try to get to, and it's really late where Shannon is, and I would like to get her into bed before we hit the 4-hour show.
My apologizing for
no worries.
taking up so much time.
Thank you for calling us back, and good luck.
Thank you guys for taking my call.
You bet.
No problem. Have a good night.
Hopefully we get an update at a later time and find out things are going well and everything else. I don't know. We have one caller left, and I'm going to do what I can to take this and be as efficient as possible, but Eric's been waiting for like an hour and a half. Eric's an atheist from Kansas, pronouns are he, him, and has a question about free will in Genesis 20 and Exodus 7. So what's going on, Eric? How can we dig in on this?
Hi. Yeah, so I was reading my Bible, and in Genesis 20, King Abimelech has Sarah kidnapped because he's intending to, how do I say this, commit a severity level 1 person felony. Yes, okay, sure. I was trying to figure out how to not say the word that might get you demonetized.
It's not. Is it literally kidnapping in Genesis 20? Because Abraham basically says, hey, she's my sister, and I don't think she's kidnapped.
Oh, I've maybe I'm misremembering, but I thought he had her like brought to the castle, but then he has once she's with King Abimelech, he has bad intentions. Let's put it that way, evil intent. But then God stops him, like leans in and says, "Hey, I'm stopping you from committing that sin." Because you'd be committing a property crime against a man, which is a whole host of problems. But like, I stopped you from doing it. And I stumbled on a video, maybe it's an old one that you've done, and I know that your reading of Exodus 7 matches with how I read it, which is God is telling Moses and Aaron in advance, here's the plan. You're going to go to Pharaoh and tell him to let your people go, and I will harden his heart so that he doesn't.
Yeah,
so
that's actually,
from those,
that happens in Exodus 4 is when he says, I will harden his heart.
Oh, in 4. Okay, sorry. But from
Exodus
those...
Exodus 4:21 is where God basically sets up the plan to tell Moses, hey, when you go to Egypt, I will harden Pharaoh's heart so that he won't let people go. And then Exodus 7 is where we're getting to where the plagues start. And so every time it says, it's not completely clear every time it says Pharaoh's heart is hardened that it was necessarily God doing it. But since 3 chapters earlier, God specifically said, I will harden his heart, the presumption is that when Pharaoh's heart is hardened each time, it's God doing it, because otherwise Pharaoh, I mean, multiple times he's like, oh my gosh, I will let them go. I'll let them go. And then he, his heart hardens and he changes his mind.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I had a little mixed up in my head after the story.
Yeah, there's slightly different verbiage. So like in chapter 7, it just would say Pharaoh's heart was hardened. But when you get up to chapter 10, it specifically says the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart so that he wouldn't let the children of Israel go. So anyway, what's the question?
Yeah, and then, well, all of this confused Thomas Aquinas, who was like, do we have free will? I'm not sure. And then Christian theologians for centuries were like, do we have free will? The Bible's kind of ambiguous. And then somewhere in the 20th century, like, Christians just started saying, yes, of course we have free will. And I'll watch YouTube videos of debates where it's like the Christian just says, yeah, we have free will. And I find myself screaming at the screen, like, citation, please. Like, where are you getting that from? And I guess I just haven't read enough. Okay, yes. So your Christian hat is on.
Yeah, I'm not going to actually grab the hat, but this is easy. When you look at this particular story, Pharaoh wanted to let the people go, but God hardened his heart, which means Pharaoh had free will, but God was able to violate it and force him to do something else. So the view is, we have the Christian view from the biblical thing, not my view. We have free will, but God can override it. And if we didn't have free will, then there would be nothing for God to override. If we didn't have free will, there would be no God hardened Pharaoh's heart, and when Pharaoh wanted to do otherwise. So this is used as an example of, we must in fact have free will in order for God to be able to violate it.
Oh, okay. I hadn't thought of that. Are there any other like passages that just say like there is free will, or is this kind of the example?
It's implied a lot when it's talking about, you're going to be making decisions and God's going to, lay his desire and will upon your heart, and then you're either going to follow or not. But then it's contradicted, and here's the problem, by the notion that God already knows everything that will happen. And so my three-pronged demolishment of Christian version of free will is this. Did God create the universe? They'll say yes. Did he create the universe knowing everything that would happen? Generally, they'll say yes. They may not. There are Christian views where God doesn't necessarily know the future, but then you have to ask, okay, then how can you do prophecy? And then the third question is, could God have created a different universe where different things happened? And if the answer is yes, if all three of those things are true, that God created the universe knowing what would happen and could have created a universe where something different happened, like a universe where I stayed a Christian, or a universe where Shannon was president of Zimbabwe.
Of Canada.
If God could have created those universes, then the decision was made at the moment of creation for everything we will ever do, which means we don't have free will. So under the Christian model, where the God is the creator and could have created things differently, you can't possibly have free will. But when you look at the Exodus 7 passage, that's where they're saying we must have free will in order for God to have violated it and for us to be held accountable for original sin. So the truth is, if you look at the Bible and you say, does the Bible support free will? Yes. Does the Bible oppose the notion of free will? Yes. It just depends on which verses you pick out and decide to build a case out of.
Which baptism's the right baptism? All over again.
It's a shame that God just doesn't correct all this shit and tell you what the answer is.
I don't have anything to contribute.
I mean,
it's all very concise.
All right, well,
hopefully that answers
question.
everything. Yep. Awesome. Thanks, Eric. I got to let you go because we got to wrap up before, midnight and Shannon turns into a pumpkin or whatever happens. I don't even know what happens in Canada.
Turn into a bitch. tired, cranky bitch. That's what happens when I'm up past my bedtime.
On that note, then, let me make a couple of announcements. And, yes, let me make a couple of announcements. And then what's going to happen is, I think, and Arden can let me know, I think we're going to roll the 30-minute after show promo after this, right?
Yes, that is what I meant to send you, not what I actually wrote.
What you actually wrote was mildly confusing, but you know, I got it. So before we roll this 30-minute after show promo thing, first of all, huge thank you to Shannon for joining me today. I always love when we get to do a show together. I thought today was great. Cool conversations. Even our Christian caller, I've had lots of fun talking with our callers today. And thank you to Stephanie Helms for screening calls today. As a reminder of all the things that are coming up on the Line Network in the coming week. Tomorrow on Skeptalk, John Gleason will be joined by London Storm. That's at 6 p.m. Central. Tuesday at 6 p.m. Central is Chewed Gum with Eve Was Framed and Alyssa Ljub. Wednesdays, The Hang Up is going to be me and Dr. Daryl Ray at 6 p.m. as well. Thursday's Transatlantic Call-In Show is going to be Josie Caballero and Stephanie Helms, who was our call screener tonight, doing that at 2 p.m. Central. Fridays, when the Recovering from Religion pre-show starts, and Saturday, Recovering from Religion charity event starts. And I'll be back on the Sunday show after that with Eric from Skeptics and Scoundrels. And on the Sunday show after dark next week, it's going to be Forrest Valkai and Paulogia, two people that I just love to listen to and watch work anyway. In the meantime, if you have not done so, click like, click subscribe, ring the bell. I don't normally say that stuff. It's for everybody who's been watching YouTube forever. It's like, please like and subscribe and do this and all this. But it really does help. Go check out patreon.com/calltheline for more information on how to support us outside of YouTube. You can also go to linemerch.com and see what we've got going there, including I think the Your Gay Homie hoodies are still up there, as well as the NBoss coffee mug, which is just so awesome. I love my t-shirt so much, and they're all there as well. We really appreciate everybody for supporting us and for participating. Get ready for a big weekend supporting Recovering from Religion, having lots of fun, and hopefully we'll not only get potentially theistic callers, but some detransitioning individuals. And I know we're going to hear from people in RFR who are going to share some stories of events that they have been a part of, so that, you know, when you're supporting an organization like this, I'm not just sending money out into the void. There are real people who have zero interest in doing a debate about a God or arguing or anything else. They don't want to be in positions where they're being taken advantage of. They don't want to be wrong. And yet they are stuck, surrounded by friends and family and loved ones who don't share their changes in belief, who are making it difficult while still just trying to be decent and loving. It can be horrifying, even when everybody's genuinely trying to do their best. It reminds me very much of how two different political parties can both have a goal of making the world better, but have very different ideas of what better looks like and the best way to get there, and no way to effectively communicate those differences. That's where Recovering from Religion can come in to help people who are feeling like they are absolutely alone. One of the most common questions I've gotten or issues that's been raised in the 20 years that I've been doing this is, I'm the only atheist in my area. No, you're not. You're just the only atheist in your area that you know. And if that's the case, RFR is there to help and can point you to resources where you may be able to find out how you can interact with other real live flesh and blood off the internet people who have been through what you're going through or are going through it with you. On that note, thanks everybody for tuning in. Thanks to Aron Ra for being our producer today, and thanks to all of our call screener and moderators for this. We will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Yeah. I've only got 2 more questions in this section. This next one might be loaded or it might be easy. But this is the second to last question for everybody. Forrest Valkai. Are you okay?
Me. Yeah, I'm doing all right. I'm pretty fucking overwhelmed right now. I got a lot going on. But I'm making good headway on editing.
I can hear the
I'm writing some cool stuff
there. I feel like there was a lot implied in that. I got a lot going on right now, and then some asshole called me to do a podcast in the middle of the day, totally unplanned.
Yeah.
I feel like that was in there.
It's
parentheses.
Currently about 1:30 in the afternoon. I just took half of a shower so that I could come here and be on this podcast, and I haven't eaten anything today. And I'm very tired.
I'm currently in a fast. Are you making sure you still hit electrolytes when you're fasting? You got to do that.
I'm not in a fast. My life is in shambles and I live like a slob, but I haven't fucking eaten anything yet because I'm fucking busy doing stuff. And as I realize as I'm sitting here, I'm like, why does my stomach hurt so bad? Oh yeah.
Put some salt in your hand and lick it. It's good for you.
Hell yeah.
Get those electrolytes.
I'm gonna go get some fucking some like a succulent Chinese meal. After this.
A succulent Chinese
Chinese.
That does sound nice.
This is the one that's got me by the penis.
He's got me by the penis, people. Have you seen his interview where he does clarify that he made that part up? There wasn't any penis.
I know, dude. That was the context that I needed after all these years. Seeing that interview was so good.
Yeah. All right, here's the last question of this segment. What would you name a cat with markings around their eye that looked like a monocle? This is very important. No wrong answers.
I would name Erasmus.
Okay. Erasmus.
Or Snert.
Okay. All right. I'm trying to remember.
Or like maybe Brungus. Brungus would be good.
Eve's answer was something like...
I'm bad at naming things.
Eve's answer was something like Gertrude, and I realized when she said it that I had done like the riddle where like the person comes in the hospital, I can't operate on them because this is my son, how is this possible? And it's just to expose sexism that the doctor is the mother. And I was like, shit, why did I assume monocles were only worn by boys? I was like taken aback that she was saying girl names, and I realized I don't think I've ever seen a girl wearing a monocle in my life.
It'd be hot.
Yeah. Just a monocle. That's my new podcast. Welcome to Just a Monocle with Jimmy Snow. No, my new podcast, the personal one that won't be unplanned and impromptu like this, it's the best name that anybody's ever come up with. Have I already told you this?
You haven't, but feel free to shamelessly self-promote.
It's not even out yet, so I can't. What are people going to do? But anyway, the podcast featuring me, Jimmy Snow, will be called. This is the official name. Jimmy Snow has a podcast.
Nice.
Isn't that just the best?
Nice.
All right.
I love that.
That ends the personal questionnaire. If you've got time,
thank God,
we're gonna do the read some YouTube comments directed at you. I bet they're gonna be all mostly nice, and then we'll do the game, and we'll call it a day here. Let's see.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's type in Forrest.
If they are nice, don't do it because I can't handle that right now.
Let's see. My compliments to the chef for the title's use of shred. Bravo, Jimmy and Forrest. One of my favorite combinations of people. I agree. I think we tag team well.
We work really well together. Yeah.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Our last show we did together was a lot of fun. It was. I'm still riding the high of how much fun I had that night.
Hell yeah.
Erika is awesome. I was ecstatic when I see her and Forrest doing another show that I watched. John, go home. You're drunk. Let's see.
Right on.
This one is how you and Aron are awesome. You're saying you don't want too many compliments. Okay, here's one that's a little critical. I'm surprised that Forrest and Aron, though they spelled it Aaron, didn't call out the caller on his dishonesty. He began by proclaiming that science led him to deism with the vapid glass metaphor, but quickly shifted toward it being a residual daddy issue from early religious indoctrination. Do with that what you will. Do you got anything?
Okay.
Yeah. It's literally like when you're on in the hot seat and somebody's gish galloping at you, people are always going to be disappointed when you only manage to knock out 7 of their 99 statements. And you're like, I can't.
Yeah, that's like, I don't think people like it. Yeah, I'm not trying to say like, oh, woe is me here, but like, I think like a lot of people that are critical of these shows, as I was when I was watching, the first times I ever watched AXP and everything, I'm like, oh, I wish they'd done that. Oh, I would have done this, but I would have. Like, that's all fine and good to say. But when you're sitting there with lights in your face and you know that there's somebody watching every fucking muscle twitch that you do and every fucking time you look and you just under intense scrutiny and you're trying to keep up with what the person is saying and you've got the chat open and you're looking at the next 3 calls to know what's going on there and you've got like producer chat on the other side and you're making sure your framing is right. You've got 4 different windows on 2 different screens open in front of you and you know that several thousand people are going to judge everything you do. You're going to do your fucking best, and that's what's going to happen. And if you think you can do better, become a host. Start a channel, do some stuff, get good, get famous, call us, and we'll give you a job.
Yeah, no shit. Yeah. Here's a on the same episode where the person who was like, I don't like your reaction to Chuck for being a bigot. Someone else within moments of that same one had written, lol, Forrest going ham on bigots is literally my favorite. So it's funny how often that happens where you get the 2 inverse comments from each other.
2 things about that. Number one, like fucking what kind of person would I be if I let that shit? Yeah.
Let's go ahead and do this rant. I just need to step away for a second.
Okay.
There's been something delivered to my door that needs to be put in the fridge. So I'm going to step away and you do your rants while I'm gone. Don't say anything I wouldn't, because I will listen to this in post, probably, maybe. We'll see.
Okay, it'll be short. You go ahead.
All right.
I was gonna say that number one, like, what kind of person would I be if I just let that shit slide and just dealt with what he was actually saying? Like, you gotta fucking stand up for your trans homies. And then also, like, to the person who was saying that you should have let this go and you shouldn't have, and like, I'm all for. Yeah, I think they said something along the lines of like, I'm all for standing up for trans people too, but like, you didn't need to take it this far. Fuck you. Then you're not actually for standing up for it. If you have like trans friends and you aren't willing to go to bat for them and you aren't willing to get into fucking fight with somebody who's being shitty and disrespectful and dismissive of their humanity, and you aren't willing to vote in a way for people who are going to protect them and protect their rights and vote against people who are going to fucking hurt them, like, you don't have trans friends. Trans people, and there's a big fucking difference. So like, put up or shut up. That's what I'm saying there. And then since Jimmy's not back yet, I'm gonna say here that if you ask really nicely in the chat, Jimmy will show you his belly button. He will do it. So if you're watching this, or I guess listening to this, I need you to, on the next several shows, ask Jimmy to show you his belly button, and he'll do it. If enough people ask, he's a little shy, but if enough people ask, he'll do it. So I need you to start asking him. Make it a trend in the comments. We need to get the numbers up so that enough people on every show are like chanting in the comments, show that button, show that button. Show me that belly button, Jimmy. Because he'll do. He's very proud of it. He's very proud of it, and he wants people to know about it, but he's embarrassed to talk about it. He doesn't want to feel like he's leading the charge. You know what I mean? So you have to ask him to give him the confidence he needs to show you something that he's very proud of, which is, again, his belly button.
My belly button?
That's that. So don't listen to any of that. Don't worry about it.
It's funny that you say that, because I have said many times, I would rather my straight up dick pics leak than pictures of me casually shirtless. That is not 1000% true. I have a pretty deep belly button right now. Hopefully.
Yeah, I told him how proud you were. You don't need to fucking brag.
It's deep. A lot of lint gets in there. It's always dark blue, even if I wear a white shirt. It's the weirdest thing.
Keep it to yourself.
Somebody explain the science of that. How come if I wear a white shirt, I still get dark blue lint? Where is it coming from? I need to know.
From what orifice did I produce this lint?
Let me tell you, I forgot I had ordered groceries. The only reason I ordered groceries was because there is a chance that Matt will be stopping on his way home from a convention today to utilize my woodworking, we'll say skills, even though it's more tools, but might need to use one of my woodworking tools on the way home. And I realized that there's a high chance he'll need to use the bathroom. Every time he stops by, he usually does. He or Arden will, and the hand soap in that is in the, that phase that you're in denial about needing to refill the hand soap, where you're like pumping it like 30 times just to get the right amount in, or you're like opening it and wiping it out with your finger. It's kind of It's kind of in that phase.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I haven't been there in a long time, but I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Amber and I are bougie, and we wait until there's a fucking like Bath and Body Works sale, and we order like 5,000 fucking soaps and just keep them and everything. We're fucking. You should come by sometime. Try our cool soaps. We have 1 million of them.
I will. I do order a lot, but I'm finally at the end of mine, so I just did a soap refill. But with it, I had ordered roast.
That's why.
beef.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We never have to refill it. We can just exchange the soaps because we're that fucking cool, y'all. I'm not trying to boast or anything like that, but we're rich in soaps over here.
Rich in soaps. God, I didn't know they were doing that well.
We're fucking living high on the soap hog.
Let's see.
The soap hog.
Someone said that you and Josie on the channel, you and Josie have the warmest smiles.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah, everything's pretty nice. I'm trying to scroll to find you something else.
It's about 98.6 degrees in the mouth.
Hell yeah. Forrest's face when he said he has a sexual relationship with God has me fucking crying. You stole that from me, you bastard. That's my bit. I don't know what you said, but apparently you said you had a sexual relationship with God.
No, I didn't say that. Some guy. It was when it was like one of the first shows I ever did with Matt. And this guy called in. I think it was biblically. I think we let biblically on for a time. He at some point or another said that he has his relationship with God is like so complete and so perfect. He even has a sexual relationship with God. And I think the thing I asked at the time if God is a top or a bottom, and it like nobody answered me, but like everybody in the comments was like that was like the trending thing for a second. I saw in the comment section of that one.
I see. Okay, at least you didn't steal my bit.
No,
I'm just kidding. You can have all my bits. That I heard it as it came out. It's not what I meant.
It's fine. It's fine.
It's you know what's funny is Eve and I were talking about this when we were reading the comments. How you and I have a similar chemistry to what she and I have. I would say our on-air chemistry is almost identical. And yet, when she and I are having a good time together, the comments are, "Wow, Jimmy flirts with Eve a lot." And never is it that I'm flirting with you. And arguably, I am. No, I'm just kidding. But it's weird.
I mean,
it's weird how it's always. It's. I think people don't realize just how queer I am, except for that one guy who I commented about how every time I bring it up, I need to stop bringing it up because every time I do, he can't stop himself from imagining me sucking his dick. That's a real comment. He's like, you give me no choice when you bring up, and it's just, holy shit, what the fuck is wrong with
bring
you?
It up more.
Yeah, I know. I was like, bro, there's nothing wrong with that except for that you're not keeping it to yourself. That's not a thing I need to know. You need to talk.
I did a bit with this guy named Scotty Wartooth who does a cosplay of Jesus, and he on TikTok, and we did a video together where I, as a biologist, call Jesus on the phone and start complaining about like human design errors and stuff. And at one point in the call, I'm like, why are our testicles so stupid? Like, why are they hanging outside of our bodies where it's dangerous? They can get hurt. Whales and hippos have their testicles inside their body. It's safer. It's more streamlined. And like, just I'm just complaining about this. And I got this one comment talking about how fucking stupid I am and how terrible evolution. And they brought that up. And they're like, first of all, having the testicles outside the body is more visually appealing. And it looks, and I'm like, all I heard is that you like the look of balls. That's all I'm getting from this comment. I haven't read the rest of the comment. I won't read the rest of the comment. I know how much you like the look of balls. That's all I need to know about you, sir.
I'm just like, now I'm just trying to, the people who don't understand sexual selection and stuff, and it's just silly. It's literally like, if that was true, ovaries would be on the outside as well, and men would be obsessed with them. Show off those little ovary cleavage, and little
ovary cleavage.
Yeah, just peeking the little ovaries under the belt. Whatever. People are dumb. Let's see. I'm not fine. I even tried to like. Oh, here's a great one. Forrest Valkai continues to be the only good host. I really don't like when people talk over the callers to basically put them down and shame them, because you never do that, Forrest. Doesn't matter if they're wrong.
Nope.
That doesn't warrant shaming them and only serves to get their atheist viewer base to go, ha, look, stupid Christian.
No, I mean, this person's correct in every way, and I am the best host, and that is exactly why. Smash that like and subscribe, but to me instead, they go to my channel, like and subscribe.
I don't have a problem with anybody saying that they're the best host, because I don't feel I'm the best host. So I'd have to.
I don't feel I'm the best host either.
I'd have to third person approximate. I'll tell you who I think will be the best host in a couple years. I'll tell you off air, or maybe not even a couple years, but one of the people who works here, I'm seeing the rate at which they are getting better, and I'm like, okay, holy shit, this person's gonna be fucking nuts before too long. Yeah. But I don't want to put pressure on them or tell people who my favorites are. All right, let's do the quiz. You know?
Yeah, I'm down. Text me who that person is after the thing, so I can try to latch some of my fame to them and become friends with them and grow by proxy.
You're gonna wanna. I shot you the text, but you won't be surprised. I don't think at all by the text. But you're gonna wanna for sure latch on.
Right on. For real though, I am joking about that. But actually though, if somebody's doing a really good job, I want to work with them. That sounds cool.
Yeah, no kidding. For me, I'm in the position of my hope is that everybody goes on to do great stuff, and that hopefully I can be a useful. I don't want someone to just look back and go, in my history was Jimmy and his network. I want someone to look back and go, in my history was Jimmy, and I'm glad he was there because he, the tools that he helped me with were effective. But I don't need to be thanked at an award show or anything. I just want to feel like I'm making an impact that doesn't require me to put my face on shows anymore.
For sure.
That's my highest aspirations. Anyway, were you surprised I sent you the text? I can't imagine you are.
I haven't looked.
Oh, well, why don't you?
I'll look now. Hold on. Just hang on a second. Oh, yeah. No, yeah.
Yeah, right. I felt like I gave away enough with context. People will wonder about it. All right. Don't put it in the comments of the show, though, patrons. Keep it to yourself, because I don't want to have to read. We read the comments from the previous show at the end of each show. I don't want to have to read all of those people speculating over who I think the best at specifically the call. I mean, this person's going to be great at a lot of stuff, but I think at the call-in format stuff, holy crap, I'm just blown away. Anyway.
Yeah.
All right. Today, you are playing for Elizabeth. Now, we have multiple Elizabeths. I believe the easiest way to tell you if you're the correct Elizabeth, I am referring to a person named Elizabeth who is probably Elizabeth and the last initial is G. I think that will help rule out the other people who are like, am I the Elizabeth? But if you don't receive the message at some point in the next 24 hours with either the prize, which is a t-shirt, Never Have a Bad Day t-shirt, the Forrest Valkai holiday special that won the mug thing, or if Forrest does not get 4 out of the 5 questions right, you will get a $10 coupon to the same merch store. That'll come as a message. So if you never get that message, you're not the right Elizabeth. The t-shirt. No.
All right, cool. Yeah. I'm here for Elizabeths everywhere, but especially this one.
We use because I have such an obsession with the materials and how it feels on the, we don't use the cheaper tier. It is not $10 is not almost the cost of the t-shirt, I guess is what I'm trying to get at. We do the nice, super soft, autism approved ones. Anyway, here we go. Yeah. Of these 5 of them, it's 5 questions. 4 of them are multiple choice. 1 of them is not. The first one is not. I think you will find the first one very easy. I'd say it goes harder. It gets harder as we go. Question number 1. Donald Trump is on trial for hush money payments that he concealed, potentially to avoid swaying the election. Can you name the porn star he allegedly paid off?
Wasn't that Stormy Daniels still?
Correct.
Oh, fuck.
That was a
fucking noise. I didn't like it. Yeah, I hate it. Go on.
Wait till you get something wrong, because I forgot to fix the pad, so I have to use a different wrong. It won't be crickets this time. Anyway, if you prefer, we could do when you get it right. That's an option.
That is better.
You like the air horn more? All right, cool. I'll turn it
I
on.
love the air horn. Yeah, let's do that. And if I get it wrong, do the same air horns but louder, and that's how I'll know.
Or a different rhythm. All right.
So good.
Question number 2, multiple choice. In what major U.S. city did a bridge collapse after a collision with a container ship occur recently? Is it A, Baltimore, B, Newark, C, New Orleans, or D, Ease Nuts?
Oh, that's a good. Yeah, it's either Baltimore or Ease Nuts. I'm gonna go with Baltimore.
All right, that is correct.
Hell yeah.
The smallest, this is number 3, the smallest of the formed elements of the blood are the A, white cells, B,
platelets.
Can I finish, please?
All right, go ahead.
A, white cells, B, red cells, C, platelets, or D, Ease Nuts?
It's platelets. You actually put them in order of size. White cells are the largest, red cells are kind of middle, platelets are small, and your nuts are tiny. So like that's exactly how it was.
Well done. All right. 4, when looking at the cross section of the human tibia, one finds the red marrow in the A, medullary cavity, B, cancellous bone, C, periosteum, or D, Ease Nuts?
I'm 99% sure it's medullary cavity.
Is that your final answer?
I know it's correct, but like, what was the third one again?
Periosteum.
Yeah, no, it's not that. Yeah, it is medullary cavity. Yeah.
Correct. All right, this is the final question. You've already, Elizabeth, if you are Elizabeth G, if you're out there listening, you have qualified. You have won the t-shirt. You will be receiving a link with a promotional link. When you click that, it will take you to our store where you will be able to get the shirt and the shipping for free. Congratulations. But this one is for kicks and giggles and a bonus and fun. Name the fallacy committed in this statement. My son listened to Taylor Swift as a kid and now he's gay. Is that A? Wait, do you want to see if you can name it without the multiple choices, or do you want the multiple?
Correlation and causation.
But that's not what the name of the fallacy is.
Oh, fuck.
Okay,
give me the names then. Yeah.
Is it A, the genetic fallacy, B, the post hoc ergo propter hoc fallacy, or C, begging the claim, or D, Ease Nuts?
I think I'm trying to remember because like that's the names of these things fucking suck.
That's true.
I think I want to say genetic because that's like no, it's post hoc ergo proctor hoc, I think.
Correct.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, a genetic fallacy would be more like my son is gay because he how would I make it? The genetic fallacy is like the origin fallacy. It originated, that's wrong because
that's where I was confused. I was like, is the gayness originating? But then I was like, no, it has to be like the arguments originating from a thing. Therefore, I do or don't like it. And it's like it's like argument from authority, but worse.
Yeah, it's almost the opposite. Like that's wrong because Fox News said it, kind of thing.
Right. Yeah, that's genetic fallacy for sure. Yeah.
Well done. You have one. We'll little applause here. Woo!
Oh.
I love this.
Get those people out of your house.
This soundboard is the shit. It's got the theme song on it.
Oh.
Obviously, it's how I'm talking to you through my phone, just a Bluetooth connection. It's got multiple mic. I love this soundboard. I'm very happy that, and I don't even have it connected to a computer right now. I can literally take it with me, record stuff anywhere, and I'm good to go.
Nice.
It's tight. Anyway, I don't know why I'm talking about my soundboard. You might want one day. I don't know if you ever do a podcast. That's all I need you for, unless you want to stick around for the comments from the last episode that I did with Eve, which you are welcome to do. But I understand you're a hungry fella, and I don't want to keep you from that.
I'm quite. I've got a lot going on. But yeah, no, it was a lot of fun. Thanks for having me on the show. It was wild.
It was better than you thought it was going to be, wasn't it? Like you went in and then you had a good time. I bet.
What I think is really notable is that this was just a phone call between you and I. Like this, the length of time we've been talking, the shit we've covered, the irreverence of the conversation. This has been exactly what a phone call between you and I is usually like.
But a little short, a little bit shorter.
Yeah, if we're being honest. Yeah, exactly.
We've had some 3 and 4 hour ones before. That's for sure. No, I appreciate that you quickly made time to get it done. I wanted to do this for a couple reasons. First of all, before we go further, and I wonder if I should have looped this at the beginning, or maybe I'll add it at the beginning, but, we're obviously talking to mostly an audience of patrons. Do you want to mention what your Patreon link is so that anybody who wants to cross support, go ahead and let them know?
Yeah, go to patreon.com/renegade science teacher, or just go to valkailabs.com and you can find like all my links to all my things on there. And that's pretty easy. My lowest tier is $3. It's pretty chill. So, and the thing is like, the shit that you get on my Patreon at the higher tiers is like, you know, a Zoom meeting once a month. You get in my Science Probably book club, things like that. But most of it's just bonus content about just like shit that I'm doing. Like I don't post any like extra stuff like Jimmy does. I'm not saying my Patreon isn't worth it, but like I think that education should be free, and so like I try to keep everything free. But Patreon is a fun and exciting and accessible place for everybody who wants to spend $3 at least.
Cool. As I do these shows, certain things come up and I go, oh, I want to make sure we do that again in future shows, make that a segment. So in the future, I will try to make sure that everybody who, while they're promoting their Patreon, do slightly shit on my Patreon. Let's make sure we make that a tradition now.
For sure.
For real, man, I really appreciate you doing this, and I'm glad I'm trying to get as much done with you before you leave for the summer. So imagine I will probably annoy you more before you go, though probably won't do another one of this podcast before you head out, but we'll see.
Yeah, whatever works for you, man. Seriously, I'm easy. So yeah, I've got I don't know when this is going to come out, but I think I've got like today. 3 or it's coming out today. So I've got like 4 more things on the line. I've got I'm doing a show with Roxanne. We're doing a Cause I Wanna, I believe next Friday. On Monday, I'm doing the Sunday show tomorrow. On Monday, I'm doing Skeptalk with my friend Morticia. She's a microbiologist, and I think I'm doing the next Sunday show as well. So like, tune into all those things and send lots of super chats and help me make those shows as weird as possible, because they're going to be some of my last shows for a while.
Yeah,
I think I've got one more. I've got one more in May. I'm going to do one more Skeptalk with Jesse, and then that's going to be my last on-air performance for a minute.
Plus, you'll be participating in the charity streams.
Yes, I'll be in the charity stream as well. Yes,
that first weekend of May.
That is correct, and I think Austin is going to be my co-host for my little segment there.
And one other person, I don't remember who. We're doing panels of 3 this year instead of 2 because we have enough people. But you'll have one other. It might be Seth. I don't remember though.
I'm down to hang out with Seth. That's nice as fuck.
I'll let you know. Yeah, you're on the Sunday show with Eve this week, and at the end of the Sunday show, we're going to preview a portion of this week of this podcast.
Right on.
So it's going to be cool. It's going to be cool. Right. That's another reason.
Yeah, I'm really excited to work with Eve. I've been friends with Eve on TikTok for a while. I met her once at a party. She's a very, very nice person. We've never had the chance to actually work together, though. I'm really excited to see how that goes.
That's going to be a good show. I might even watch it, which I watch so little of our stuff. Just make sure you do stop by 5. Do stop by 5. You know, we gotta
Yes.
we gotta make sure that we don't bleed
For so
into
many
the other
reasons.
stuff. So yeah, awesome. Well, it's great talking to you. Thank you again for doing this. I'm gonna read the comments off to people and do the outro. But I appreciate you, buddy.
Right on. Yeah, I'm gonna go soak. But it's been tons of fun being here. That was a callback to your Mormonism. But no, I'm gonna go away now and get some food and then get back to work. But this has been the most podcast I've been on all day.
Hell yeah. You go enjoy your succulent Chinese meal.
I certainly will. Thanks for listening, everybody. Goodbye.
Later, dude. Well, that was fun, and it always is. The guy cracks me up. I just like him. He's a good man. He's a fun man, and he's long-winded. That's for sure. But I don't want anybody to think the crickets thing was actually done out of anger or bitterness or anything. It was. He and I can both go on for a long, long time, and I just hope one day he's as confident pushing me along as I am with him, because I deserve it. I really do. But I just love the guy. His passion is infectious. His kindness, his compassion on top of he's just a good dude. And it's fun. He's like, I'm trying to remember what show it was, but I watched, what was it? Where just somebody was they like hired an investigator who was like, go find everything you can, all of the dirty laundry, all of the skeletons in the closet. And then he goes and looks, and there are none. Like there's nothing. The guy's like perfect. That's kind of how I feel, where I'm just like waiting for that day of like, what part of you sucks? And so far, nothing. The guy's just a good guy. He's a good man, good friend, good person.